The following podcast contains naughty language and ridiculous situations. Listener discretion is advised.
You know, I'm very excited to announce that this July 2021, we're going to see the return of the world's dopest tag team. I'm not talking about your boy and Dynamo Mars. No, I'm talking about Blue Beetle and Booster Gold. That's right. All right, DC Comics 6-issue miniseries called The Blue and the Gold, written by Dan Jurgens with art by Ryan Sook. I'm going to see them reteam in a miniseries, and you're going to find out how a guy from the 25th century isn't really good at modern technology. You know, I'm very excited, but, you know, I just want to take a page out of Monster Zero's playbook and kind of pimp something that we don't get a cut for. But hey, with that said, welcome to Trick or Treat Radio.
Zombies. You're listening to Trick or Treat Radio, starring the Deadites.
Welcome to episode 456 of Trick or Treat Radio. Trick or Treat Radio is the world's most dangerous podcast and recorded in front of an undead studio audience here at Castle Wolfenstein, also at the Lair of Lost Swag within the Raven Chateau, also in Casa de... Casa de Zero, the Lair of the Gods, and school is also in session. The class is now open as Professor J is joining us in the center square tonight.
Hello. That sounded mildly dirty when you said that. The class is now open.
I'm gonna fucking circulate all over the place. I'll tell you.
Yeah.
Raven Shadow, he's more the improv. So what would you say, Raven Shadow, if you were introducing Professor J?
Oh my lord! Right about now.
Oh god.
Pick up your pencils, drop your books, return your desk to the upright positions, because school is in session, sucker. Professor J is going to make you smarter today, maybe tomorrow, maybe next week. We're not sure, but you better pass the class or we're going to get that ass. Professor J.
Wow.
Wow, I should have let you lead with it.
I think I'm gonna just play that at the beginning of every class that I have. At least at the beginning of the semester.
Yeah.
You know.
Exactly.
Anyway, nice to be here, everyone. Good to see everyone. Am I supposed to be wearing my mask? I don't know. What's the latest on that?
Move 6 feet back from the camera.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, you've been vaccinated, Jay.
Yeah, I have,
Oh,
but
good for you.
I want to be safe. I want everyone to,
So I think let's see. I'm not quite. I got my 2 weeks coming up on Sunday, so I'll be vaccinated after that. Raven Shadow, he got his first vaccination last Friday, right? Or
Yes. Yep. Moderna was the case that they gave me.
how you feeling today? You didn't really get much of a side effect, right?
No, but driving back, Marion did take me because I wasn't sure, how it might work out. And even like in the ride home, I'm like from Natick, you remember Jay, and I was like, that's a weird. What's that fucking pain? What's that? I was like, phantom fucking things, like,
You got a phantom limb.
Oh man, it was a phantom menace. I'll tell you that much. No, it turned out fine. No, I was sore on the Friday and Saturday, but it was like getting a flu shot. You know what I mean?
You didn't do what I said. I think we already discussed this. You didn't do push-ups. You didn't lift weights. You didn't get any blood flow in there, did you?
Out of high school, Johnny. Why am I doing gym shit?
The very idea of him doing any kind of push-up or lifting any kind of weight is laughable. And speaking of laughable, was the person who gave you the shot, was he or she laughing when he or she saw the size of your arms?
I didn't get it in my arm, motherfucker. What do you think of that?
Oh, then where did you get it?
No. Listen, I'm used to needles. Okay.
Okay.
I don't want to talk about it, but I've had needles in my arm before. No. She was very pleasant. We had a nice conversation. You did not arm shame.
That's it, huh? Very nice conversation.
Yeah, no, she didn't arm shame me.
Arm shame.
I'll arm shame you.
Well, yeah, well,
I can't even see your arms; they're so small.
It's dark in the studio, John.
No, it's not. It's not dark. All right. Well, we have Professor Jay here, and class is in session, as Raven Shadow said. And before we catch up with Jay, I just want to let folks know what we're doing this evening. We're going to be talking about a documentary entitled Clapboard Jungle. It is streaming on Arrow's service. You can check that out. So it's about independent filmmaking, independent horror specifically. So it has a bunch of interviews with some luminaries and of independent cinema, and also some other big sort of wigs like Guillermo del Toro and the like. So it'll be an interesting conversation we'll have a little bit later about that. But that's what's up for tonight. And if you guys want to leave a voice message, if you're listening live, feel free to send it to podcast@trickortreatradio.com. Give your thoughts about the film we're discussing this evening, or any other films that you've watched recently, or any films that we've discussed in the past. And also, I'll talk about the Patreon a little bit later. We'll do that as we start to wrap up the first little intro segment here. But Jay, what's been going on with you? Haven't seen you in a little bit.
No, it has been a while, hasn't it? I thought because, everybody was locked in, I'd get called more often. But, it's like a year goes by and all of a sudden, we'll drag him out of the mothballs.
Aww.
No, I'm joking, of course. Nothing really, just, teaching and doing the Charlotte Film Festival is kind of getting kicked into high gear now to see what we might be doing for the end of the year, whether we'll go hybrid or whether we'll stick to purely virtual. Just been attending a few online film festivals, watching a lot of stuff. And just kind of, kicking around, waiting for whatever the new normal is going to be, right? Like we're all doing. So,
yeah.
But yeah, no, so nothing really too exciting. Oh, well, I don't even know if we even talked about this. Because it feels like it's a long time since I was on, but maybe we talked about it, but I don't know. But we're opening a movie theater in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Oh, how about that?
We talked about that or not? Yeah, we the Charlotte Film Society, which I am the programmer for. We over last summer. The last art house movie theater that would show a movie like we're talking about tonight, Clapboard Jungle, closed in Charlotte. So we went from 13 art house screens down to 0 within the span of 2 years. And this was the theater that showed like Parasite and what was the TT movie, Jojo Rabbit. Yeah. Like this was the movie that showed the bigger art house stuff, but also the smaller, stuff that we talk about on this show. So we decided at the Film Society, yeah, fuck it. Let's open a theater. Let's open a cinema. So we're in the process of fundraising and the walls are starting to go up, I think, next week. So we may be open by the end. We may be open by the end of the year and have a little 3-screen art house movie theater in Charlotte, North Carolina. So all the filmmakers listening, but also all the film fans, if you find yourself in Charlotte, you can come to it's called the Independent Picture House is what we're calling it. So that, I guess that I've been working on that, kind of working on.
That's pretty big.
It's
Is it a new, you had said the walls are going up. So does that mean is it a new building or is it refurbishing an old one?
No, it was a developer who's refurbishing an old kind of warehouse building. So we started talking with them and they're doing sort of the warm shell for us. Sort of putting the warm shell up, and basically the walls of the auditoriums, and sort of building out the just where the bathrooms are and that sort of stuff. And then we'll go in and actually put all the seats in and put all the curtains and the screen and the projection equipment and all that. So, so it's a developer who's, again, we got lucky, I think, in just working with them. And so we got lucky, but we just that was a thing. We were like, there's nowhere to really show. And from when I've been on this show before that, we have these film series we would do throughout Charlotte, and a lot of the movies that you all cover on this show would be things we would show as part of our back alley series. We'd show Lucky in Charlotte so an audience could see it or something like that. And so now we'll just have a cinema where, those movies will actually get a chance to play and sort of screen for multiple screenings, and audiences will actually get to see them on a big movie screen. And then we'll have the festival there, and we'll probably have other festivals and events there over the years. We've brought Joe Bob Briggs to town before. Yep. We brought Bobcat Goldthwait to town. So there'll be other filmmakers and other film events like that we'll do at the theater. But having a cinema to do that is exciting. Maybe who knows? Maybe we'll have a live podcast there sometime.
Oh.
I mean, I'm just saying. I mean, if we can get Raven Shadow to get out of the cave there, and
I'm trying, bro. Someone drive me.
All right. Well, that's what I'm saying. Get in the van and let's go.
Yeah.
Anyway, I guess that's the only other thing that really I've been doing other than just the normal teaching and watching movies and stuff. So
that's exciting, though. That's really awesome. And so for folks in Charlotte or anyone who is going to be traveling through there, keep an eye out for the new cinema. It's the Independent Picture House. That's exciting. So I assume the Charlotte Film Festival will be held there at this.
Yep, that's the plan. Yep.
Nice.
Yep. And other festivals too. That's the hope. The hope is we can do other festivals. We can do genre festivals there, smaller genre stuff. But also too, that's why I say I know a lot of film makers listen to this podcast and stuff. And so there is an element of, just filmmakers who are looking for places to have their work seen, once we get open. I mean, it's like, hit me up, let's see if we can work something out.
Yeah.
Because we'll be a nonprofit cinema too. So we're not going to be like a chain that's, going to ask a filmmaker to, like a big chain like Regal, if you wanted to screen your movie there, even just for one night, you have to buy out an entire auditorium, which could cost you a couple $1,000s. And as a nonprofit, we won't do that. We'll work with you and figure that out. So anyway, I'm just throwing that out there.
Awesome,
Filmmakers,
yeah.
who are listening. Yeah.
That's outstanding. So everyone, if for people who are filmmakers or maybe who may have a something to screen, get in touch with Professor J.
Well, wait till we open first. Don't get in touch with me now.
No, just spam him right now.
Yeah. Anyway.
No, that's really great, and I'm really excited to hear it. And hopefully things will be back to normal when it opens up. And I'd love to come for the premiere, screening, whatever that may be. That's exciting.
It's Jack the Bear, I think.
Jack the Bear.
It's the gag that keeps giving.
So no, that's very. What the fuck's that, Raven Shadow? You squawking like a bird?
It's funny. I like that, Jack Bear. I get that reference.
So that's awesome. So great stuff. What's I guess we'll probably talk a little bit more about this as we enter into the film discussion, because it's very relevant. There's a lot of stuff about festivals and all that. So I'm sure we'll get a little bit deeper into that. But have you seen any movement on the festival front, Jay, in terms of being more of a in-person thing, or is everyone still doing a lot of the virtual stuff to this point, or any places planning to do like in-person screenings that you're aware of?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. It's right now. It's still kind of that, still up in the air. But most festivals seem to be leaning towards, if they're in the fall, seem to be leaning towards at least a hybrid festival. But even like River Run, which is a fairly big regional festival here in North Carolina, they're doing like drive-in screenings and some, virtual outdoor. Sorry, not virtual, outdoor screenings. Um, uh, TIFF hasn't, Toronto, which is in September, really hasn't said what they're doing yet. I don't think the New York Film Festival, which is in October, has really said what they're doing yet. But my hunch is they'll be at least hybrid, which means some virtual and some in-person screenings. And I know Independent Film Festival of Boston is all virtual, I think, again this year. Because again, it's still a little too early. So I think the early festivals, if you have a drive-in or you have an outdoor venue you can use, are doing that. But I think we'll probably see some full in-person or 75% capacity festivals in person definitely by October. And then I think the big one, the real thing to see will be what Sundance does next January. That'll be the big, if they go fully in person, that'll sort of show that the shift is, fully swung back the other way. But then there is also too, I mean, again, and we'll probably talk about this with Clapboard, but it might be a thing where every festival going forward is a hybrid festival now. Yeah. So that's a whole thing too that we don't really know the answer to yet. So again, we're planning in Charlotte here for hybrid unless something drastic happens, which will mean we'll have titles available to watch online, and then there'll probably be at least every night a couple of film screenings to reduce capacity, 25 or 30% audience, and mainly hopefully just for if we have any bigger titles, because last year when we did our festival, there were a few titles that names escape me at the moment, but there were sort of bigger films that I wanted to show that have been released since, and we just couldn't show them because the distributors were like, we don't want to do it virtually, even though eventually they just ended up dumping it virtually, in February or January or December or something like that. So yeah, I mean, I think people are slowly coming back. So I would think by the fall you'll see some in-person festivals for sure.
Yeah, it's and there's also the element too. I think that this is one of those things that could have a lasting effect if there's a lot more virtual festivals. The good thing is it opens it up to anyone. Like anyone can go. You don't have to be in Toronto to attend TIFF or whatever. You can attend virtually. But it also kind of takes the regional aspect out of it. It's almost like, I hate to liken it to wrestling, but back in the day of the territories, you could have like Ric Flair would go through and do like all the different territories and play and he could play different characters because no one would know otherwise, because, if they check him out in North Carolina, someone in Austin is going to get a completely different thing. And, that's the interesting thing about it is, you can do the circuit and have it play at all these different places. But if all the festivals are available to you and they're available to a wide audience, maybe you just pick and choose the big ones or, whatever. Like, do you see that this may affect some of the smaller festivals because of that?
I mean, I think it will, but again, I won't even say belief because who knows ultimately, but this is something we talk about all the time where, a lot of times that movies that are bigger movies, they don't really need that smaller festival to begin with. They'll play it because, it's there. And so I sort of feel as a programmer that for me, what appeals to me about maybe if things stay virtual to some extent is like, so South by Southwest just happened, a month or so ago or whatever. And some bigger films and some bigger stuff played there, not big, meaning tentpole movies, but like, big independent stuff. And that stuff's already out. That stuff's already out on Netflix. It's already out on Hulu. It's already, the big series, that's on Hulu that everyone, is talking about. That was at the South by Southwest, and 2 weeks later, it's on your TV. And I think what it does is, for a smaller festival like Charlotte, or maybe some other festivals, is maybe it forces you to then sort of start championing the smaller level of independent filmmaker, right? Not the sort of the people who are the independent filmmakers who, like, everyone knows. It's like the next level below them. So I think, that's where you'll just have to realize where you go, oh, well, we can't get any of these movies because, they're going to play at a festival and they're going to be out on someone's TV in 2 weeks, or they've already all seen it. So maybe it means, like what we do here, we get submissions for our festival, and there's lots of features that are great features. And as soon as you put, Parasite in your festival, well, that means some other smaller film can't play now. And so maybe it cultivates a whole new audience of, like, the next level of sort of smaller independent movies. I don't know. I mean, there's a great thing. Again, I don't want to get into the Clapboard Jungle thing, but, there's a comment in that movie about how, the idea that sometimes they don't let movies build a following and build a thing. It's like they just play a festival and get out into the world, and then people forget about them. That, I think, is the real danger, is those middle line, smaller independent features, which should have good lives.
Yeah.
And lots of people that will just get lost now because every week, every month now, HBO Max is putting some new big movie out that's sucking up all the oxygen in the streaming, or Netflix or something.
Yeah.
And so unless there's, podcasts like yours and others that are purposely trying to focus on smaller movies, they will just get lost. So I don't know. I think we'll be fine. I'm excited to kind of go, all right, nobody needs to discover certain things anymore. There's other things. And that's what's been so interesting about South by Southwest when I went a couple months ago, meaning virtually,
Right.
is, I was watching all these movies that I probably would never have watched because if that festival was going on, I probably would have been purposely going and watching some of the other bigger movies with, not big stars, but stars who are more recognizable. But I was sort of like, why? It's going to be on Hulu in a month. I can just watch it there,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that is one of the interesting sort of side effects. Like, a lot of us don't feel comfortable going to see films in theaters right now. So it's great to have an outlet like, let's say, HBO Max or, Disney Plus or whatever, that these, putting these big tentpole pictures out, so we can watch. But you're also right that they're competing with the smaller guys now because, people typically have only a finite amount of hours in the day or hours in the week to watch movies. So, when maybe you would have watched had a popcorn night and watched a horror movie on Friday night, maybe instead tomorrow you're going to watch Mortal Kombat because, you might have wanted to see that in the theater. But you know what? Hey, it's streaming on HBO Max and I get it free through my AT&T cell phone plan or whatever it is, so it is interesting that, there's so much more available to us now, but, there's only so many films you can watch in a week unless you're like, our friend, some other friends we have like Al Gore or Corny, like, they watch a lot of movies, but in MZ, you watch a pretty good amount of movies a week, right?
Yeah. On my according to my letterbox, past 3 weeks I've been watching 11 movies a week.
Holy moly!
There you go.
Christ.
Yeah. So I mean, there's someone like MZ, you can kind of watch a little bit of everything, right? Like you watched Godzilla versus Kong, didn't you?
I haven't seen it.
Oh,
yet.
that's right. You don't have HBO Max. I'm sorry, but you would have, right? If you had HBO Max.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah,
definitely.
So, but that is, that's one less movie that you might have watched. Although, to be honest, MZ's viewing is bad porn on Arrow and and Police Academy movies.
Golden Girls.
Yeah. And
Yeah, he could watch a variety, but he doesn't
yeah,
watch a variety.
And Benny Hill reruns.
I do watch a variety. I just enjoy Police Academy and porn just a little bit more. You know? I think they have more to offer than your typical art house film.
It might be true. That might be true.
Corny
And you know
says,
what?
"Oh, go ahead, Jake. Go
No, I was going to say, when let's face it, Police Academy is porn to him. So
ahead." True.
I know I get off on it.
Oh boy.
when he sees Captain Mauser in the shower, boy,
Yowza.
rubbing his hair, Captain
Yowza.
Mauser, those butt cheeks. Come on,
Oh
Come on,
yeah.
who doesn't want to see Tackleberry?
Oh
Who doesn't want to
yeah.
see?
Oh.
Who doesn't want to see Tackleberry aiming his Glock at some Jaws ripoff in Assignment Miami Beach? Come on. I mean,
You're ready now, mister.
All right, scrap the format. Full Police Academy series review. Go.
Oh
No,
my God, MZ would fucking have a heart attack.
I'm joking. Please don't.
You're gonna have a fucking guest speaker be like, all right, class, we have someone that knows film coming in. He is a connoisseur of fucking
He
this
puts the
particular
sewer
film."
back in connoisseur.
Yeah.
I love my toys too, but
Crash cycle.
Hey Jay, he's 49 years old, just so you know.
Corny.
I'll be 50 in less. I'll be 50 in less than 2 months.
Oh Jesus. Corny says in the chat room, "I don't have a life. I watch 7 a week." So apparently you have more of a life than MZ does, Corny. So for whatever that's worth.
Hey, look! If you guys want to rip into me about watching movies, why don't you rip into Goro?
I'm not ripping.
He's like
I'm not ripping.
he's
it, yeah.
nearing on his 300th film or something like that.
Yeah, it's insane. It's insane. But Jay watches a lot of movies because that's kind of your job.
Well,
Yeah.
I go in bunches too. So I will have weeks where I'll get really insane, and then weeks where I haven't watched anything for weeks.
Yeah.
And it just depends what's. That's why I like festivals, because what I can do is I can sort of carve out 4 days and say, oh, in 4 days I'm going to watch 32 movies in 4 days, or so, And then the thing though is that as a programmer, then as those movies get released, I can just go, oh yeah, I've seen that, we should book that. Oh, I've seen that, we should book. Instead of like having to constantly watch things. But yeah, I do. I mean, again, I don't think on average one a day is outrageous. I mean, most of us spend at least a couple hours in front of a media watching TV or a movie.
Yeah.
TV shows, whatever. So, saying you watch 7 or 8 movies a week is not crazy to me, even for my mother probably watches 7 movies a week, and she's, in her 70s. So,
Yeah. It's really just comes down to prioritizing what's important to you, whether it's, some other form of media, whether it's video games, whether it's baseball, whether, sports, movies, TV, whatever. So, yeah, I mean, most people have enough downtime to fit in, a movie a day probably. But
or like you said, video games or whatever, or if they like working out, they go work out for 3 hours a day. I mean, it becomes,
Yeah, exactly. Just priorities. MZ, you don't really play video games these days, so I mean,
No, not really.
Yeah.
The only thing I have hooked up to the TV is a one of those little mini Genesis systems.
you play Ghosts and
That's
Goblins,
pretty
or is
Yeah,
it
that's
Ghouls
pretty-
and Ghosts? Which is this? The Genesis one? I forget.
Ghosts and Goblins, I think it is.
That fucking game, man.
Kid Icarus.
I thought he was going to say the only thing he had hooked up to his TV was one of those Sibian machines.
Hey, what the hell, man?
So when he's like watching, Benny Hill, it's like
do you play the theme song all the time?
he's got the little dial,
Oh shit. So
Actions are ridiculous.
We'll talk a little bit more about some festival stuff and independent films as we start talking about Clapboard Jungle in just a little bit. So we'll get back to that and Jay's expertise in booking festivals and attending them and everything will come in handy. So, and we also have MZ who, we make fun of him a little bit, but he's been on quite a few independent horror film sets in your day, MZ.
Uh-huh.
And
Sure have.
And Raven Shadow only attends if he can be indoors in a warm house with a really good spread.
Yeah, I do that. Yeah, with no gunk in my face or hair.
Yeah.
That.
He has to live the life of an A-list celebrity.
Ooh, hey, Raven Shadow's an A-list.
I don't want to get dirty. Don't put.
Yeah, never mind Wolfie and his stupid fucking movie ticket being an A-list member. It's Raven Shadow who's the A-list member. He's the one who wants a good spread, warm place to hide out in so he could smoke his cigarettes. And if it's cold outside, he'll go outside only when he's needed. Other than that, leave him alone.
Listen, first of all, I smoke a lot in the cold, and then after that, I just don't want to suffer for my art. I don't want to suffer. I want to be relaxed for my art. I want to be.
But it's not your art. It's not your art.
Why?
You're just. What's your art? All you did was walk.
No, here's the thing, Jay. All right, we're going to take it back. We were on a very exclusive shoot for a Jarrett Blink one production. Okay. Exclusive. It was a very, very tight cast. Now, it was the middle of winter, right? Now, the thing is, when this sound comes off the radio, people are mind controlled, right? And they're going to walk out in the cold. Here's the thing, Jay. Everyone's wearing their fucking parkas. They're wearing their coats. But what I did, you know what? I did stuff with my art because I thought it made more sense. If I'm listening to the radio, maybe I'm not outside. Maybe I'm indoors. Maybe I'm, cleaning the bathroom or I'm fucking doing some dusting. So I went outside in just my thermal. Okay. I didn't wear a coat. And I felt that was being more present in the scene because if I'm mind controlled, why would I put my thermal, my flannel on, put my jacket on, put my hat on? No, because I'm mind controlled, right? I'm wearing my thermal, bro, and jeans.
But, dude, you were about 50 feet away from the camera.
I can't help what Jarrett shoots, man. I know his dad liked me. You tell me stories with Arnold Schwarzenegger on the fucking limo driver. Yeah.
Oh my god.
And he didn't want any stuff in his mouth. We had to have this like charcoal. We had to have this like charcoal water dripping down our mouths and off our faces and stuff. And Raven Shadow, he wouldn't hear of it.
No, I know. No one heard my inner anxiety. Only me. But I was gonna do it. But Tony Blinkhorn brought me in the house and he gave me whiskey. And because he was mad that I was drinking water. He's like, oh, Raven Shadow, what the fuck? You drinking water? I'm like, well, Tony Blinks, it's fucking 10 a.m. Come in the house, fucking. So.
I don't think it went down that way, but okay.
Yeah, it really did.
He did yell at me for having a bottle of water. But no, then I came out. I'm ready to bite the bullet and be a team player for Jarrett, right? Team Trick or Treat Radio. And that's when Jarrett yelled from across the street, Raven Shadow, you're too thick. You don't need the black stuff. And I fucking really
because he wanted to fucking shoot because we were waiting for you for like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So that's why he was like, yeah, just get in the scene and fucking shoot.
Very dark.
All you had to do was walk slow. You were about 50 feet away from the camera, so nobody could really tell if it was you or not to begin with.
MZ was a featured extra.
Yes, I even had physical contact with the lead actress.
Yeah, you went into business for yourself.
I had to, man. Look, she was doing what she needed to do, but I had to do what I had to do, and that was just to keep walking straight like we were in a trance. Okay? And she happened to be in the way. So what was I going to do? Just go, whoops.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you're saying
I don't think that would have worked.
You're saying the star of the short was in the way, and you felt as an extra, you were like, "Fuck that casting choice,
Fucking knock her
Jared."
down.
Yeah, I'm gonna walk
because you
through
keep
the
on-
tiny girl.
Yeah, because you keep on going until you hear cut. That's what you have to do. As an actor, you keep going no matter what's going on. You keep going until you hear the director say cut. After that, then it's all fine.
Corny says listening to Steely Dan at a food table isn't suffering for your art, Raven Shadow.
I don't want to suffer. No, I mean having black shit in my fucking teeth. I didn't bring my mouthwash. They didn't tell me about
You
that.
didn't bring your stimmy dent?
I had that.
Oh, you always have that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we've heard that story before, so there you go.
I enjoyed it.
And if anything, Jarrett's parents probably suffered more for Raven Shadow's art than Raven Shadow.
Tony Blinkhorn liked us, at least me, a lot.
Corny wants to know if MZ got a restraining order after that for bumping into the star. Not that he's aware of.
I didn't get it. If I did, I didn't get it. I forget her name though. Damn it. She's kind of known around this area too.
Porter. Her last name's Porter.
Oh, Allison. No, not Allison Porter. Diana Porter.
Diana Porter. That's it. Yeah.
As a matter of fact, she was in one of the shorts that was on your film festival, your virtual film festival. I forget the name of the short, but it was the one where they did it was a short about somebody who ordered a live monkey from the comics.
Oh yeah, that was Darling Pet Monkey.
Darling Pet Monkey. Yeah, Diana Porter was in that.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that was Jim
Cummings,
Oh,
is
what's
it?
his last name? No, Jim McDonough.
That's it. Yeah.
Jim McDonough, who's a New Englander who lives in
Yeah.
I think on the North Shore. I think is where he lives, but I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, was just a real. And again, we've connected a little bit through the internet now since his film played, because that was the big thing. I was like, oh, dude, where were you when I was living in Massachusetts? But yeah, so we bonded over a Nick Asaski baseball card that a friend posted up on my Facebook pages, and he just randomly appeared and was like, "That's awesome," and I was like, "Oh, okay." Remember him, Nick Asaski? Remember him?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Oh, I never thought I'd ever think that Nick Asaski's name would ever.
Yeah, there you go. That's what I come on here for.
I guess there is kind of a tie to Clapboard Jungle, because Diana Porter was in For a Good Time Call, which is one of Izzy Lee's shorts, and Izzy was featured in Clapboard Jungle a couple times. So there you go. So made a little connection. 6 degrees of MZ.
That's right. It's like the opposite of 6 degrees, though, because now none of us are allowed to get anywhere near Diane Porter because MZ walked. It's like, oh, hey, I know. Oh, no. Oh, that guy. No, you're not allowed to come anywhere near me.
Yeah.
Well, the part where I bump into her, that's the second shot. That was like the second or third take. The first take is when I bumped into her because I really had no choice, and that wasn't used. So.
No, you could see you bumped into her in the short.
Oh no, I did, but not as hard as I did. I did with the first take. The first take was
he just went all for it in the first take.
Yeah. I was like Braun Strowman in the WWE. I was like,
chugga choo choo.
MZ is like Ian Holm. He gives the director something different every time. I'm going to give you a slightly more aggressive bump into the actor this time. Or now I'm going to pull it back a little. see which bump you want to use. You know.
Well,
Only this time I'm going to give her a slight kick in the shins as I walk by her.
Oh, okay.
well, MZ did stab a house in one of his movies before, so
Well, I was in a pissed off mood.
that house didn't deserve that.
Yeah.
Good old Blood Pigs, MZ. That's where he stabbed a house. If anyone wants to watch it.
Yeah, watch me stab a house.
Speaking of which, MZ, I don't think you have any updates because I haven't seen him post anything. But have you heard anything about Brian Pollan's latest opus, Septic? Any info?
Nothing.
Okay.
I could ask him.
We'll have to
Find
touch base with Brian, and when he has something to talk about, maybe we'll have to have him on because love to. That has me, Raven Shadow, and MZ, and also Mars is in it. So
And T-Dog in a uncredited, in a different outfit
oh yeah, I almost forgot about that. Yeah.
or gear.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. So yeah, so we'll see if we can get an update on that. I mean, Brian typically, it's done when it's done. So maybe could be a while. I know
It could be months.
But-
it could be 6 years.
Yep.
He has posted things on Facebook. Like he was posting something about doing some Foley. He had like a giant cinder block with like scrapes in the garage. So probably doing some sound mixing.
It's interesting, obviously Brian does sort of like, I wouldn't call it zero budget, but it's very, very low budget productions that he does. He pieces things together with what he has available to him. He does a fucking killer job, doing, especially with the gore. So it's interesting where we're going to talk about Clapboard Jungle, where Justin McConnell is trying to get his films made, trying to get a budget, because he can't really go forward without a budget. And, it's interesting to see that kind of flip side of independent filmmaking, of someone just doing as a passion project. And I'm sure also, we'll talk about more of Clapboard Jungle, but Brian Pollan doesn't, he just kind of does it because he loves it and he puts them out when he can. So I don't think we'll ever see Septic at a con or or anything like that. So that would be something. All right, so let's start to wrap this up. If we're going to head to a quick break, and we'll be back to talk about Clapboard Jungle. But before we do, if you guys want to help support the show, there's a few ways you can do so. Head on over to our Patreon page, patreon.com/trickortreatradio. And just this past weekend, we posted up part 1 of a 2-part series. We did kind of a history of the found footage genre. MZ was kind of leading the charge on that, talking about some of the first found footage films, some of the most notable, some of the most influential. So we had a little discussion about that. And then in May, we're going to drop part 2, and part 2 is going to be MZ's top 10 favorite found footage films of all time. And a pretty interesting list. I'm sure there's going to be some surprises and others not so much. Like MZ's number 1. I'm sure everyone, if you've listened to the show, can guess what it's going to be. But still, it's a great list, and we got some pretty good feedback on the episode so far. So if you guys want to check that out, that is our April Patreon exclusive. And for those who may be new to Trick or Treat Radio or haven't been listening for for a long while, we put those out. They're exclusive to Patreon. We have no plans to release them any other way. So we put out one a month, and they typically are deeper dives into topics, or maybe been talking about doing some kind of retrospective type stuff. We've done some film commentaries in the past when we were able to all get together in the same room. So give those a look. Head on over to patreon.com/trickortreatradio. And also, while you're there, there's a bunch of other ways you can help support the show. It's get in for as little as $2 a month, and you get access to those audio episodes. If you're in the higher tier, in the $5 tier, you get the video feed of the episodes, and you also get an invite to the Monsterpiece Theater Movie Club, which meets every other month, where we talk about a film and have a discussion where everyone is involved. And we also have Patreon takeovers, and The Patreon takeover for April might have to wait until later in the year because I reached out to the person whose show it is supposed to be, and he's just swamped and doesn't think he'll have time. So we're going to either put it on hold or he's just going to give us some films to discuss. We're still waiting to hear back. So just want to let folks know that is back in motion. So we'll be doing the Patreon takeover soon. Also, you can get access to our Discord channel. You can hang out and chat with us on Discord. And we also have spoiler discussions about the films that we discuss. And you guys can give us insight or recommendations for what you want for us to do for the future episodes. So give that a look, patreon.com/trickortreatradio. Also, on trickortreatradio.com, we have the Amazon link. You scroll down on the main page, you see the Amazon logo. You click it, brings you to Amazon. Everything you purchase in that session will get attributed to us. We get a tiny little cut. In Raven Shadow, I don't think it costs them any extra, but
It doesn't, Johnny, but it's another way to help keep the lights on.
that's right. So if you guys want to, you shop on Amazon anyways, most of you do. Just use our link. We get a little cut, and that goes to help pay for all this, everything, all the subscriptions for doing the live show, for the hosting, for the website, for the podcast, for equipment, all that stuff. So every little bit helps. And also on trickortreatradio.com, we have a store. There you can buy some digital goods. We got the greatest hits of Trick or Treat Radio volumes 1 through 3. We've been doing the show for 8+ years, so if you haven't been around for the duration, which we don't expect all of you to have been, you can check out the greatest hits and hear some of the highlights, the lowlights, the midlights, everything else in between Raven Shadow, the arguments, the interviews, the songs. It's got a little sampling of it all. Raven Shadow was a big fan of the what was it called? The sampler at Denny's, right?
Oh, I love the sampler.
You can't decide which appetizer you want. You get the sampler, right?
Yeah, it's like I'm so fucking high. I don't know what I want. Oh shit! It gives me a little bit of everything, and you can share. You got mozzarella sticks. You got fucking, potato skins. You know what I mean?
Did you say potato?
Potato skins.
Okay.
Data skins. Yeah.
Data, yeah.
Brent Spiner. Yeah. No, potato skins.
So it's like a sampler. So if you guys want to hear a little bit of everything, and also for those folks who maybe it's possible at this point that people have listened to the show and didn't even know that we had other co-hosts throughout the years. Dynamo Mars was on for a good 5 to 6 years. We had Tiny White in the early days. Aries came and went, and then he came back. The prodigal son had returned, and he's probably regretful every day. Just a little bit, yeah.
He's like hypebeast.
Hey, if you remember, I don't know if you remember this. The very first time I was ever on Trick or Treat Radio, I was very disappointed that Aries was not there.
I do.
Remember, I was like, I walked into the room and I was like, where's Aries?
Oh, yeah.
Because I had been listening and then he wasn't there. And I was like, I felt discombobulated ever since.
I do. I remember that.
You are the first person and the only person who was disappointed when I wasn't there.
Well, because I was listening to the show and it was part of the show. And then all of a sudden I was like, here I am. I'm in the room.
Yeah.
And it was a really tiny room too.
Yes.
In the spacious Castle Wolfenstein 1.
Yeah.
Maka 1? Oh, yeah, that was a tiny room. Yeah.
That was fucking the COVID fucking.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
It's the COVID cantina. If
cough, sneeze.
Would you like to buy some death sticks?
Yeah. That was fucking lame, dude.
So if you guys want to get that, go check out trickortreatradio.com, click on the store, and get the greatest hits. Now, we are going to head to a break, but before we do that, Raven Shadow is going to let us know what he did to prepare to watch this week's movie, Clapboard Jungle. Raven Shadow, what did you do to kind of get in the mood, kind of get lubed up and get ready?
I got free Chinese food, Johnny.
What?
It's true.
How'd you work that?
I didn't see it coming.
Robbing a Chinese restaurant is not free Chinese food.
No. So I get home, and I'm just, I'm just thinking about things. I got fucking problems. I'm smoking a bit. And my mom calls. This is today.
Baby, I got some free Chinese food.
No, here's the thing. So she called me up. So she got some for her and my dad, for Al. And I guess when they were taking it out of the bag, Al's got it on the fucking plate. And she's like, that's not what we ordered. So she called her local joint and said, oh, you gave us the wrong order. And the one kid was like, oh, okay, bring it back. We'll get you a new one. And like, well, we can't bring it back. Not only for lots of reasons. So she did bring it on the fucking plate, and she's a regular over there. And when the owner saw that it was her, she's like, no, you keep it. We'll give you a new order. So my parents had these 2 giant bags of fucking Chinese food. So she's like, baby, I got those chicken tenders you like and the teriyaki. I'm just going to bring that over, baby, for you before you do your little show. And I'm like, all right, that really fucking happened today. I'm 44 years old.
So your mom drove 30 minutes or whatever it is.
Well, I did tell her, I'm like, Mom, you eat first. Don't know.
Okay.
I don't.
Wait, I'm sorry. The screw up happened today too.
Yeah.
Holy Jesus!
Yeah. It's so then you got free Chinese food, and Ollie and I watched the rest of the picture. And you got to believe, with free teriyaki, your boy strapped on.
Greetings! We are the Retro Reductopus Cephala Podcast, a bi-weekly show that celebrates all the things that made growing up awesome.
He's right. We wax philosophic about lots of geeky crap like old video games and movies, toys, cartoons. I don't know, help me out here.
Music, pants, quoting video games that don't have dialogues, shabibans, tasty news,
Unnecessarily long Japanese onomatopoeia.
butt breathers, uncomfortable nature facts.
Or how to install a Samouflage.
And unlike all those other podcasts, we at Retro Redoctopus have an exciting rotating host schedule.
Do we? We sure do.
So, if you didn't like the guy flapping his gums this week,
Like me.
worry not, gentle listener. Next week we'll have a whole new host.
Of problems.
Hey, they might still suck, but they'll suck differently.
And you know what's really cool? Retro Reductopus is part of the Inebriard Podcast Network, with new episodes out every Tentacle Tuesday.
Which is like every other Tuesday. We named it.
Anyways, you can listen to us at iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, or straight from the tab, reductopus.buzzsprout.com.
Trick or Treat Radio is the greatest podcast ever invented. The spelling is very bad. I'm not sure who wrote this. And the Deedites? The Deedites. Is that a company that procures houses? The Deadites. Oh, it's the Deadites. The Deadites are a fantastic musical act. That is what I was supposed to say. And there you go. There it is. Cheeseburger. Remember to rent The Fly, because that's a good movie for making love to.
Jeff Goldblum, thank you so much for joining us, and hopefully we can get you on the show again sometime soon.
Oh, delicious nerds. Ms. M knows you like to chat it up with other sexy shut-ins about comics, movies, video games, and your favorite TV shows. If that sounds like you, cuddle up to the Trick or Treat Radio Facebook group, or the FIB. That stands for Fan Interaction Board. Just go to Facebook and search for Trick or Treat Radio and have more fun than a Jedi at a lightsaber sale. Not enough? Watch us on YouTube, The Deadites TV, all one word. Last but not least, check out the world's most dangerous talk radio show, Trick or Treat Radio, at trickortreatradio.com.
It's not a problem at all. I got plenty of noodles over there.
All right, we're back on Trick or Treat Radio.
Hey, Wolfie.
Hey.
I'd like to interject with a little news.
Okay, hold on. Let me kill the music.
Okay.
Do we need
kind of ironic with what I'm going to tell you.
Do we need breaking news sound effect?
If you want to.
Yeah, I don't have it queued up, so just go ahead.
Okay. I just found out that Shock G, aka Humpty Hump, from Digital Underground has died.
Oh no!
Yeah, Humpty Hump.
That's sad, man. Why do you always got to bring this shit down? Jesus Christ! You're always talking about people dying.
What can I say, man? I'm a complex dude. What?
You're not a complex dude.
Yeah, not at all.
You talk about death.
Yeah, the complete opposite.
Yeah, worked with Tupac. Was in Nothing But Trouble, one of the all-time greatest films ever made.
Yeah,
correct. Dan Aykroyd penis knows.
Yeah,
yeah,
he knows. But it doesn't say how he died. But 57.
Jesus, man.
God damn it.
He died while riding the Sibian, watching Police Academy 2.
Oh my God.
He once got busy in a Burger King bathroom, you know. So
cheers, cheers to Shock G. Oh, that sucks.
Yeah.
No,
that's
How old was he?
57.
See, that's some bullshit.
I was listening to a lot of Digital Underground about 3 months ago too.
How come?
What do you mean? How come? Sex Packets is a good album, man. How come?
I'm laughing because I forgot
how many of us got a little shiver when MZ said Sex Packets? Come on.
Yeah, that's.
And I'm not saying it was a good shiver. I'm just saying it was a shiver.
It's douche chills.
That's something I'll have to tell my child. When you hear someone like MZ say Sex Packets, turn and go the other way. Hey, sorry, I didn't mean to jump on top of you there.
You jumped on top of the Sibian while watching.
The Sibian. Is it Sibian or I want to say Symbian, but it's Sibian, right?
I think it's Symbian.
It's SYB, correct?
It's a symbiote. No.
SYMBIAN.
Oh, is it MB? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I need to know what to put into Amazon for the
search.
Those things are putting us out of business, man.
Raven Shadow,
trick.
As always, misses the news.
Yeah.
MZ just had an impromptu coffin corner, Raven Shadow.
Who died now?
Yeah,
fuck him. Don't tell him.
Yeah, you have to go back and listen.
Oh, no, I'm not going to tell him, but the news broke about a little less than a half an hour ago.
You're going to be pretty bummed out, Raven Shadow, when you go back and listen.
Wait, Noob Saibot died? Who was it?
What? No. You have to go back and listen later. We were talking about it. Yeah, we were talking about it. That's what happens when you...
The other news you missed, Raven Shadow, which was maybe bigger news, I don't know, was that if you use the Amazon link on Trick or Treat Radio, you can buy a Sibian. and money comes back to Trick or Treat Radio.
That is true.
It's win-win.
I'm not sure what a Thibian is. What's a Thibian?
Never mind.
Go on Amazon and look it up.
Yeah, buy one. Yeah. Find out.
I'll buy one right now. You think I'm scared?
I think you are.
I think you will be after you buy one.
Might be the opposite.
No, you're spelling it wrong.
That'd be probably like a good prostate massage or something, right? Like, if you think about it, for a dude.
We are getting MZ is getting close to 50.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
yep, Jay. Yep. Keep it going. I'm with you.
Hold on. Time out.
Yep.
Time out.
Yep.
I know I don't want to derail this entirely, but if
it.
that is not a Patreon exclusive, I do not know what you are doing on this podcast.
Okay, I'm just gonna call. Not it. I'm not filming that one.
I'm not up there, so I can't.
Yeah, what do we do? What's the thing you did? The nose thing? Is that what it?
Yeah. There's only one left. David Shadow.
I'll be like, all right, get in there.
That's a Patreon exclusive right there. If I've ever seen one. Talk about a horror movie.
I'm gonna back that as long as I don't have to film it.
I got an even better idea.
Oh boy.
These ideas come fast and furious, like a Sibian.
Yeah.
We're on a roll here, folks. We gotta keep going.
Like MZ on a Sibian.
Exclusive Patreon of MZ's 50 prostate exam, filmed and narrated by Diane Porter.
Oh, Jesus.
The actor who we got it.
Oh, hip checked.
She'll be as she's narrating it. She'll be reading the restraining order that she just took out against him.
All right.
Oh
That's
man!
cool.
Record, I have done nothing to her for her to issue.
Well, she's not doing anything to you either. She's helping you out. She's making sure you're safe, and maybe she conducts the exam.
Oh boy!
Yeah.
No, we don't want him to have any pleasure in this.
No, because here's the thing. Then that will be a true test of whether he didn't do anything to her or not.
Ooh.
What? My word isn't good enough?
Of course it is. I'm just, I'm playing here. We're just having some fun. Come on, this is a fun time.
Well, when MZ has his exam, we'll recreate the human centipede.
That's exclusive Patreon content right there.
That's some fucking found footage right there.
Talk about free Chinese food.
Yeah, fucking the Trick or Treat Radio prostate episode.
Yeah, it'll be like the big thing with George Romero, right? He filmed the Fred Rogers tonsillectomy, right? Yeah. This is the equivalent.
And didn't the Katie Couric did a high colonic on air? On the Today Show.
Yeah, she got anal bleaching too.
Yeah, was it that?
Hey, we're not paying for your anal bleaching. You do that on your own dime.
Yeah, that's not a covered benefit, sir. That's elective procedure.
Come on, shall we use the Patreon for that or something?
What's the copay on that sort of thing?
I'll submit that tomorrow. I'll ask tomorrow.
Evil Corny says I want to unsubscribe.
No, you can't. We have your money. You're watching this shit.
That's right. You need to get 10 more people to subscribe for that.
Oh.
I will just be the first person to say, I know we got to talk about this movie, so I apologize taking us down this road, but if MZ getting anal bleached is a possibility, I will be the first person to donate to that cause. As a Patreon, I will put money where my mouth is. I'm not going to pay for the whole thing, but I'll put in some proceeds.
Do we need to video it? Like, do we need
Can he get a Brazilian?
Not like a back end shot, but like a
Brazilian. Just get him a Brazilian while we're at it.
It'll be like a whole thing. It'll be like a year-long process. Every month a different. I like it.
You'll get a Brazilian.
No, not a year long. An MC spa day. We'll wax the motherfucker. Yeah. We'll bleach the motherfucker. Just
yeah.
You got to remove that anal flap too. I'm sorry if anyone came to listen to the Clapboard Jungle discussion.
Yeah.
MZ's getting anal bleach. He's getting a prostate exam.
Getting some Brazilian.
I'm getting like 15 things done down there at the same time.
Yeah, that's outrageous. That's a fucking film festival. You want to fucking open up some screens? You can't get on HBO Max.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Talk about suffering for your art.
Yeah.
I'll be like a car on the hydraulics with about 10 mechanics looking it over.
Yeah, like that scene in
Moving Violations.
Moving Violations, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll be like, okay, It'll be like NASCAR in your underpants. It'll be great.
NASCAR in your underpants.
Hey, we have a UNC Charlotte. We have a whole building of motorsports engineering, so we could probably take over that building for a day, and you come down. Anyway, sorry.
I'm coming down.
So anyway, about Clapboard Jungle.
Yes. Anyways.
Right.
Independent film is weird.
Yeah, independent film is weird. All right, so Clapboard Jungle, surviving the independent film business, is 98 minutes, and it is directed by Justin McConnell, and the documentary, it's got a whole host of folks. I'm probably not going to get everyone, but obviously it features mostly Justin McConnell. We have Charles Band, Justin Benson, Aaron Moorhead. We have Todd Brown, Heather Buckley, Izzy Lee, as I mentioned earlier.
I hit something.
Fucking Jarrett's boy.
Graham Skipper, is that what you mean?
No. Fucking the guy. The
Fucking
guy.
the guy. Fucking
guy.
the guy.
Yeah, the guy who wears the pants.
Yeah, the guy with the face.
Oh, he was you know him, the fucking guy with the movie.
Oh my God, the guy with the movie.
Jesus, are you kidding me? Why are you giving him airtime? Wolfie, just keep going.
Big forehead in the movie with the haunted house and they turn to dust. Fuck. Johnny. He's Jared.
We'll come back to you in a half hour.
I knew you. Larry Fessenden.
Larry Fessenden. Thank you.
The forehead.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't want to say
you.
Wow. That's mean.
Did you just say you didn't want to say something bad?
Well, I fucking tried. You knew what I was
You referred to him as the forehead?
No, he has a forehead. A certain guy who turns out.
I think you're trying to say he has an 8 head.
I'm just saying that he's a talented creator.
Uncle Larry's awesome.
Uncle Larry is awesome.
Well,
Richard Cunt Stanley.
Yeah, that was oof. But it also features Michael Biehn. Can't forget about Michael Biehn. Larry Cohen, Barbara Crampton, Dean Cundy, Guillermo del Toro. That's funny. It lists Ken Evernall, but I didn't see him at all. So maybe he was cut. Larry Fessenden. Yeah, there's a bunch of people listed here that ended up getting cut. Sid Haig was in it. Tom Holland. So Lloyd Kaufman, who's who of independent. Oh, Peter Kaplowski, your buddy Jay.
Yeah, and Colin was in it briefly.
Yes,
Right.
Colin Geddes. Yeah,
Colin Geddes. Yeah.
Steve Kostansky. Yeah, we go on and on. Tim League, James Lorenz, Izzy Lee. So we could go. Mike Mendez is another one that jumps out at me. We've done a bunch of his films. So it's literally a veritable who's who of independent film. So this one I thought was interesting. So we haven't done a ton of documentaries on this show. One comes to mind where we did one of our buddies who ended up becoming a buddy. We did Steven Scarlatta's film Jodorowsky's Dune, which was fucking an incredible documentary. Almost was on the short list to be nominated for an Oscar. So that's to me, that's like the gold standard of documentaries on this show anyways that we've talked about. So we haven't done a ton of them, but in this one I think it has a bit of a different narrative where the director is the subject, which I thought was interesting. And is a little bit different from other ones that we have seen. So Justin McConnell, kind of shows the trials and tribulations of trying to make films in this really cutthroat market. And especially when it comes to digital filmmaking, or not digital filmmaking, but streaming, I should say, and how things have sort of changed. So I think it's an interesting examination, and there's some great interviews to sort of intersperse with his struggles and ultimately what could be perceived as a victory as he gets one of his films finally greenlit. He gets a budget and he's able to make Life Changer. So let's get some impressions. Jay, if you don't mind going first, I want to start with you because you you've been part of a lot of these festivals. You've gone to TIFF. You've gone to at least virtually South by Southwest. You've attended a lot of them. You book your own. So what was this experience like of seeing someone struggle? And I know you've sort of seen things from the filmmaking aspect of things as well, but you're typically on the other end where you're booking festivals and you're looking at films. So what was kind of this experience like for you?
Well, I mean, there's obviously things in the documentary that relate to film festivals, but that's really not, where the central kind of story lies. I mean, right. And I think everyone to some degree, maybe others more than myself, can relate to the idea of wanting to be a filmmaker and, at a certain age, right? I think he said in the documentary he was 15 when he started making movies and wanted to make movies. And then sort of the movie's really about how do you get to a level where you essentially are doing the thing that you sort of feel like, I don't know, you're destined to do, right? And then sort of constantly questioning over and over again, like whether you're good enough, especially if you see other people that or maybe other people, making things that seem to get some play or get some release and your stuff isn't getting. So it's, again, I mean, I think as we get into it a little bit more, I can talk about some of the festival stuff and some of the stuff related to like Fantasia and the film market and that kind of stuff. But the movie's, again, really not about him making a movie and then it not playing festivals. And, because that's a spoiler alert. That's exactly what happens, right? When he finally gets to make something, it is well received enough to sort of take him all. And again, the thing that's really interesting about this movie is, which for me as somebody who's involved in film festivals and involved in like paying attention to film festivals and going to some, is that I never heard of that movie.
Yeah.
But it played at like, I mean, arguably the 5 biggest genre festivals in the world, which to me is like shocking. Which I think then also does kind of highlight ultimately what I think is good and the point of the movie, which is, because I think there's an element in the film which I liked. There's some things I didn't like, but what I liked is ultimately there is a realization he comes to of like, well, I just kind of have to give up that somehow I'm going to become Guillermo del Toro, or I'm going to become like, that might happen or it might not. But, this idea that if he doesn't make this thing, then somehow he hasn't achieved something, right? Because again, the movie's interesting because if you really think of the film, he really starts out trying to make a different movie.
Yeah.
And then ends up making a completely different movie because nobody wants to make the movie he wants to make. And that's the movie that takes him all around the world and gets him some kind of like, I'm a filmmaker. I make movies, even though he had made movies before. So I think that is what's really good about the movie in that sense, which might relate to film festivals, which is, it's not necessarily about, I mean, even Colin Geddes, who was the former Midnight programmer, references a scene in the movie early on, or not early on, but about halfway through, where he says, a producer he knew had 10 movies that he kept trying to get into Midnight Madness year after year after year after year after year. And then finally there was something that could get in. And I think, it wasn't because the movies weren't good or they weren't necessary. It wasn't right at the time. So yeah, I mean, I don't really have a lot to say about that angle of it, but I do think, what I liked about the movie, I can say is definitely that idea of eventually at a certain point, and I think this is something we've talked about a lot on this podcast every time I'm on, which is basically at a certain point, and even came up today, at a certain point as a filmmaker, like as your friend Brian you were talking about, you just have to make it and kind of, you just decide this is where I am and this is what I do. And you're not worried about everything else, right? It's like, if it happens, good. If it doesn't, okay. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. No, I totally, I totally understand. There's not one path. I mean, look at like, we could take like Robert Rodriguez has like a very famous sort of like origin story, I guess, if you will. Where he basically did almost everything. And I don't remember what he made El Mariachi for. Does anyone remember what the budget was?
Like $7.
No.
But even like the story about like doing science experiments like he would be in testing to get money, like everything he could do to get funded.
Yeah, you weren't far off actually, Raven Show. $7,000 was the budget.
I think there's a 7 involved. I'm not sure how many zeros.
closer to than like $1 million budget or whatever, but $7,000 is fucking ridiculous for making a movie.
Oh, 100%. Or even like the Kevin Smith narrative, or there are certain, legends of independent filmmakers. There was one thing that I thought was really telling in this. Maybe I'm jumping ahead.
No, go ahead, because I was actually going to cut to you next, because I know I wanted to talk about, there's a lot of stuff that probably appealed to you in kind of the early parts of this, so maybe you'll go there, but go ahead.
Maybe. I mean, there was the line, I think it was the director of a bunch of the Astron 6 stuff, where everyone talks
about
Costanzi talks about practical effects, but they don't know how fucking hard it is to do, and the emphasis on make sure it fucking works on camera before you bring it to set. Test that shit, which can be challenging, I'm sure. I mean, it may explain why the CGI route is more common nowadays, because they know it'll work, or it'll look it's CGI, but the challenge of using practical effects is almost like Russian roulette, right? It's kind of a crapshoot. Hell, Jaws didn't fucking work, and that was with Steven Spielberg. So I like that element of it.
Yeah, and what about, obviously he talked about how it was almost like you had these independent filmmakers who were like rock stars. That's where I thought you were going to go initially, but like you got your Kevin Smiths, you got your Quentin Tarantino, you got Robert Rodriguez, it almost became like this sort of like path to stardom, right? Was to struggle and to kind of like come up through the ranks and be like a rock star director like that, and that's what it seems like Justin McConnell was in his formative years of wanting to do it, saw these guys rise from nothing to become huge Hollywood entities, right?
And that could even tie into like comics at the time. Look at the Image guys back in the day, where, everyone thought they could do what these group did, whether the directors or the artists. But everyone can't be in that clique.
Yeah, no, exactly. So I thought that was kind of interesting, and I think that's kind of where he had sort of formed his trajectory, was based on those guys. You bust your ass, you get no budget, and you make a movie, and then it just catches on, and then you get money thrown at you, and you could do whatever you want. No, obviously.
Yeah, there's a little bit of an argument to be made that that's almost not what he thought. That it was just like, or that he could do that once or twice, and then all of a sudden somebody would throw a big budget to him. And I think that's where the movie is interesting, because, I don't know, this Brian, was it Paulin you were talking about? Yeah. But there are filmmakers, and and we probably know some of them, and some, and I know some that you don't know, but that just go out and make stuff, and they just continually make stuff, and they don't sit there. And again, you have to do all of that work, which he does in the documentary, where he's making the lookbooks, and he's pitching to all the distributors, and he's like, I have my slate of movies, and it's sort of like, I need 250,000, I need $1 million, I need 1.5 million. And it becomes this sort of thing where it's like, if you sort of are trying to get to that level before you've had any level of success before that, why do you think somebody? And again, that's what the movie's really interesting is again, he finally sort of wakes up to the fact nobody's going to give me $1.5 million to make this movie when I've never really made anything of substance or made anything to sort of show. I mean, he's made stuff, obviously. That's the thing. I don't want to say he didn't make movies because he clearly made shorts and he had a feature that came out. And what was it, 2011 he had made, I think it was called The Collapsing or something like that.
Yeah.
I think that's what's so interesting is I do think there's an element in this movie which is fascinating is that there was a generation of filmmakers who grew up on like that. Tarantino just came out of nowhere because he kind of did, right? Like Kevin Smith didn't really make anything. And then all of a sudden, because they got involved with Sundance somehow, their movies got sold to studios and then they were big filmmakers, you know, again, going from making a Sundance darling to all of a sudden becoming, and I don't want to say that doesn't happen anymore because, you know, you mentioned Kong and Godzilla. Adam Wingard's like a perfect example of that, where, you know, you go from, what is it, You're Next, all of a sudden to Boom Bang Boom, and he's you know, this guy making all the big movies, the Blair Witch remake for a studio, King Kong. Now he's making something else, which I Face Off or something, right?
Face Off, Thundercats,
yeah. I mean, so it's like but even then, when you look at Wingard, like he made 3 or 4 smaller budget indies, as opposed to like he didn't make El Mariachi and then all of a sudden get King Kong. You know, it was like there was a period there of 7-8 years where he was making small indie films, kind of like the Life Changer movie that this guy makes in the end. And it is those 3 or 4 or 5 movies that, you know, and I think there's a generation of filmmakers, I think, who see Tarantino and see Smith and see, you know, and they just think, well, if I just make that one movie and it goes to a festival, then I'll be working for a big studio and I'll be the next.
Right.
And I think, you know, what the movie sort of says in a weird way, even for somebody like Del Toro, is like, you just have to make the movie you want to make, and you just have to make it. And,
he doesn't touch on the fact that in the 90s, there was this love of this independent surge in everything, in film and music and comics. It was that coming up from nothing to make the movie that touches on everything that everyone grew up on. But it just, I mean, you get the Smith and Tarantino and all them, they made those movies, but there were 1,000 other filmmakers that weren't even discovered. They just happened to hit that nerve at the right time. And the 90s was the pinnacle of that, where you just had these nothing filmmakers and bands and artists and everything else that's what the world was. It was the grunge world. So it was all this just dirty art that the world was accepting. And that is what all of us that grew up in that era are, that is our world. Like, we all grew up with that, and that is just what we accept. So we think it is that easy just to, you know, film something and just we're going to become famous. And that is what we all think, and the world thinks. It thinks it's easy, where it's because these seemingly normal people became famous from what they did, where there's a million other people who did the same exact things and went nowhere.
I mean, you got we'll go back to the names of Tarantino, Smith, and Rodriguez. As it's been said, you know, 3 guys who just came out of nowhere to make hits, and now they make big Hollywood films. And this was in like you said, Aries, during the 90s, but this happened in a very specific small period of time. Granted, it's only 3 directors, but in the grand scheme of all the, you know, indie filmmakers back in the day. But this happened in a very small window of time. I mean, you got Tarantino in 92, you got Smith in 95, and you got Rodriguez, what was El Mariachi? What, 93? Is that what? Would that be right? 96. Okay, so like in a span. All right, so let's say 96. Span of 4 years.
92 was mariachi.
92. Okay, that all right. So in a span of 3 years, you got, or let's see, 92, 93. So yeah, a span of 4 years, you got 3 filmmakers who came out of nowhere. Now, and they hit the jackpot. Now this guy, McConnell, is looking to try and hit that jackpot for himself, because you got like Adam Wingard, like was mentioned before. Couple of others, I'm sure that I've done. It's just not hitting my head right now.
Or Taika Waititi, right? I mean,
yeah.
You went from Hunt for the Wilder People to Thor.
Yeah.
I mean, like a tiny little foreign dramedy to the biggest franchise in the So yeah, again, that's one I think of all the time too.
And he's trying to put himself in that category as the same as these guys, and it's a long shot. It's possible, but it's a very long shot. But he sees himself as on par with these guys as far as their indie stuff is concerned.
I just wanted to bring up one more. Speaking of like Marvel, John Watts is another one who he did Clown and then did Cop Car, and then he's doing fucking Spider-Man Homecoming. Like,
how does that happen?
That is a weird jump, and now he's, he did Far From Home, he's doing No Way Home, and apparently he's doing the Fantastic Four movie too. So,
and then throw it in there like someone like James Gunn. I mean, his path.
Yeah.
To get there, and even there's some people who did it longer, who played the long game. Sam Raimi, fucking Guillermo del Toro, Sam Raimi doing the Evil Dead to fucking, the Tin Cup or the fucking whatever the fuck, and then Spider-Man.
He didn't do Tin Cup.
No, well, he made some sports movie.
For the love of the game.
For the love of the game.
For the love of God, whatever the fuck it was. But yeah.
For the love of the cup.
For the love of the cup. That was hot.
But Peter Jackson should be mentioned in there as well.
Yeah.
Especially Peter Jackson.
But again, I think even all of these directors, though, the thing that's missing is that there is a body of work before that leap. Even though I said, like, for Waititi, it's Hunt for the Wilder People to, Thor. No, but there were 5 other movies before that. You talk about James Gunn. There were a whole bunch of trauma movies building up to get to what was the one he did Super, and then Guardians of the Galaxy. So that's where I think this idea is, where again, when you think back to the difference between those people, a Wingard or a Waititi or any of those people, even Sam Raimi to a certain extent, although Sam Raimi's path is very different and interesting in its own right. But there's a whole part of sort of crafting in the industry and creating work to finally get, what was his big one? Darkman? Was that the big studio Raimi one?
The Batman that should have been.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, that was the first studio, yeah.
Yeah, and again, but he had made how many movies before that? 4, 5?
Yeah.
So there's an element there of, and that's why when I'm watching this movie, to me it's like, I like, the story is great, but it gets frustrating because your brain is like, okay, you made some shorts, you made a feature, and now you think somebody's going to give you $1.5 million to make Cop Car, so then you can make, the next big movie that will cost $100 million. But the idea is, no, you have to make a movie like you end up making at the end of the movie, and probably make 3 more like that, or to really sort of establish that if we give you $500,000 or $250,000, you can make something of substance that people like, that we can, again, because the big thing in this movie, I think, which is key, which is different than talking about any of these people really, is, this idea that it's all just content now, which is what we talk about all the time, which is, these distributors just want content to throw at people to hope that somebody watches it for a day and then or they talk about it for 5 minutes and then so they're not going to give you a lot of money to make a movie. And again, saying $1.5 million is a lot of money. It's not in terms of movie making, but it is these days. It's like, why would we invest $1.5 million in a movie when we just know it's going to be on, Hulu and Netflix for someone to watch, maybe Shudder, right? Throw it on Shudder. Somebody, MZ will find it on Shudder, right? And so I think, again, I that's the trick, I think, is to kind of, and I liked how a lot of the filmmakers seem to just be saying, Fessenden said this. I know Del Toro said it. And even Lloyd Kaufman from Troma said it. It's like, well, if you want to go make you got to go to Hollywood and maybe you'll get lucky, but you're not going to get to make the thing you want to make. Or do you want to be like Steve Kostinsky, where it's like, well, I'm going to stay in Canada and I'm just going to save up my money and then I'm going to make the movie I want to make and hopefully it'll resonate and I'll be able to pay the bills and and again, he has skills outside that where he can do effects work. So that's how he generates money as well.
I think that maybe, and that's kind of where I was going to get at was because he mentions kind of the inspiration, the Tarantino, the Kevin Smith, the Rodriguez. And I'm not saying that that's what directed him towards wanting to do this specifically, but, it was that sort of like, I feel like he was just waiting for that hit. That he's waiting for that like, in order for him to feel kind of that he's succeeding or doing what he's doing, he needs to get that like greenlit by a studio, get like $1.5 million budget. But you're right. I mean, there's a lot of other ways to do it, and he did some of those. But it's almost like there was this measure of success that he was trying to reach, and anything below that was a failure,
Right. Yeah, I think that's the point. And ultimately, to me, that's the thing is I think there's an element in the movie where he realizes at the end, oh, wait.
Yeah.
Like I'm a filmmaker, like I'm doing this and I can do this and I don't have to second guess myself. And again, I don't know anything about the movie because I haven't seen the movie that he made. But again, that goes back to even what Graham Skipper said, which is like, I think, again, we all understand this because we know people who make movies. We know people in the industry. We watch a lot of movies. It's really fucking hard to make a movie. Yeah. And so even if it's not quite up to the level of whatever thing you think it's supposed to be, you understand that. And there is something about where most people will give whatever imperfections there are, whatever problems there are, whatever, they'll give it a pass. And, there is an element of, there was that weird conflict that he was going with of like, somehow he was like, I'm not anybody, or I'm not, I'm not making it unless I'm making this particular thing. And it's like, finally, he makes a short and a feature while we're watching in that 4-year period, which is like, how many of us have made 2 movies in the span of 4 years? Right. So your brain is like, dude, you're a filmmaker. Like
well, see, I got as I'm watching this, I get the feeling that he didn't quite understand the I don't know, the suffering that needed to be involved in it. Just because he was trying and making phone calls, it almost seemed like he felt entitled that, what, I've made phone calls for a year. I should be able to make my movie. Like, it's just like, I don't know. It just seemed like because he was putting the effort, it almost seemed like they should be like, okay, yeah, we've talked to you for a year, so we'll make you a movie. Like, regardless of whether it was good or bad, because he was putting in his time, it should have happened.
Yeah, and doesn't Travis Stevens have some kind of statement about that where he says, like, you gotta live in the world for a while and kind of like see how all of this, that's what he says.
Yeah.
Where he started, I can't remember, he started as a producer, but something else. And it's, finally starting to direct films and write films now. But that was the thing that he was saying in his little part is that, that's what you have to do. You got to come to the film market at Fantasia and fail, and then come back and fail, and then come back and fail, and then maybe you get a little bump up and somebody says, okay. And again, that seems to be repeated over and over again. And I think, what the movie does right, I think, is he ultimately at the end of the movie highlights the fact that, okay, if you do have that perseverance, which you're talking about, Aries, and you do sort of realize like nothing is owed to me, but if I'm willing to work and I'm willing to put the time and the energy in, like, it will yield results because he does have talent and skills, and and because ultimately I won't say because he wants it, but he's willing to work for it. He's willing to keep going back and sort of going back and saying, okay, nobody wants this thing. Well, what if I write a different movie? What if I, write something that maybe a studio has told me they actually want me to make, right? I mean, that's a big part of it too. So I do think there's that element of it. The thing I like about the movie ultimately is I like that because I was on the fence when I was watching it, because he says at the beginning, you don't make a documentary about yourself. And for most of the movie, I'm struggling with, I think that's true.
Yeah.
Like, this is a lot of him but ultimately when I get to the end, I think, well, we have to have that because we have to see him learn. We have to see him kind of how he's acting at the beginning and at least where he gets to at the end, and seeing if there is any change, or even if it's a slight change. It's like, okay, we had to experience him in a different way at the beginning and sort of talking the way he was talking. And we had to see him kind of get beat down and realize, okay, no, I got to put the work in. I have to it's grueling, it's hard, it's all that stuff. So I think you're right on that part, Aries, for sure. That
I never get the feeling that he actually learns.
Well, that's a question. That's a question.
He is. I mean, it's not that he's a bad filmmaker. He just has some bad ideas, and he is persistent on trying to perhaps make these bad ideas. And whether his ultimate decision not to abandon the ideas and just move forward, I think, is his ultimate downfall to all this. And as you said in the beginning of this documentary, he lays out 3 rules to the documentary, and he breaks them all right off the bat. Like, he doesn't shy away from that. This is not, I'm going to do everything I was told not to do for this documentary. Whether it works or not is a different story.
Well,
Yeah.
Also the thing is also that, damn, now I forgot what I was going to say. Son of a bitch.
Well,
it'll get back.
I'll jump in.
Back.
I'll jump in, and then you pop in when you remember. But
okay, it'll come back.
Turn the Sybian up. You'll be fine.
But I think for me, at times I struggled with following the narrative. When I think ideally what it comes down to is this movie is about his persistence and his passion for what he wants to do, even though it may be misguided at times. And I think that there's times when, like, it's almost like a little silly, like him, like on, lifting weights and on the elliptical machine, and like some of that stuff was like, I don't know. I'm not gonna say self-indulgent, but it just seemed like almost like to try to like garner some sympathy for, I don't know, there's something just felt kind of off about it. And then ultimately towards the end, it almost felt like it was like one big marketing stunt for Life Changer, the triumph of this filmmaker being able to get his film made, and here's the movie, now go watch it. I almost got that, but I know that that's ultimately wasn't what it wasn't about, because this is something that he filmed over 5 years. So I understand that it wasn't like he just was like, oh, I'm just going to do a documentary and, and kind of market the film and stuff like that. But it almost at times felt like it was a little losing the sort of narrative that he was going for, and some other parts took over, which, kind of made it a little jumbled. But ultimately, I think that it is about the discussion about, art and what it takes to make it, and the influences and all these other, everything else that surrounds it,
I kind of felt like there was a supreme irony about here we are for about 100 minutes listening to this guy how he can't get his film off the ground no matter how hard he tries, but in the process is able to direct and release a documentary about the trials and tribulations he has of trying to get his actual films off the ground. So there's a certain irony involved with that as well that I just felt throughout the entire film. I'm not exactly sure what that says, but to me, that I felt that was a little awkward.
Well, I'm gonna say at the beginning of this, I think he started out just filming everything that was going on in his life, not knowing exactly where he was going with this, and it ended up being. I think Wolfie said it. It's just kind of a narrative to the movie. Like, here, I made this documentary about me getting this movie made. Like, I think it's just kind of a poor, very long trailer for this movie. Very self-indulgent, and I don't think. MZ, you said he directed it. I don't think he directed this. I don't think there was any direction in this. I think this was all editing. Like,
well, I'm just going by what the credits say. And
I'm splitting hairs with terminology.
No, that's
I don't
fine.
think there was any direction involved in this.
Well, yeah,
but I mean,
except maybe the talking head interviews, right? I mean, that's technically.
Yeah.
If he's doing most of those interviews, which again, I don't know if he is or not, because I know a lot of documentaries that have talking heads, they outsource those to, other places. But yeah, I mean, the direction is, like you said, Aries, is in the editing, it's in the sort of piecing it together. But also, again, it's a good choice, but it's a bad choice. There's also direction in, well, now I'm going to pick up my iPhone and do this and talk to it or whatever he's shooting on. I mean, there is some sort of, again, when you're talking about a documentary, the word director becomes a little more of a vague term.
Especially when you're the subject.
Yeah, well, especially when you're the subject, of course. Yeah. But that's where I think even director becomes, for lack of a better word, more obvious because you are the subject. So in a way, you are directing the actor. I mean, that, again, the biggest issue I have with the movie really is that I would have liked to have seen more talking heads and less him talking and filling in the gaps. Because that's like, there was a movie I saw recently, very good documentary about folk horror, which played at South by Southwest. I mean, it's like a deep dive into folk horror films. It's great. It's directed by a woman who's a scholar on folk horror films and has written books about it and all this kind of stuff. And it's a really great documentary. But the one thing that bothers me in the documentary, that sort of takes me out of it, is whenever there was like, you needed a talking head to say something specific to make a point, you cut from something going on to a person who says, and that's why you never get a dog on your set, right? Yeah. In that documentary, that Woodland Horror documentary, it was a lot of times it was like the director sitting in a chair as a talking head sort of saying the thing. And I always sort of felt like, okay, well, this is almost scripted now. This has an element of, you didn't interview a bunch. I mean, he did interview people, obviously, and the thoughts that they say are their own thoughts. But most of the time it was like, well, I need to make a point here, so I'm just going to turn my camera on and make the point as if it's like an industry point. As opposed to the times when it really works is when he's just saying, like, I got off the phone and I'm really depressed because the guy told me to F off or whatever. Like, those are fine. But there's other moments where he almost acts like a talking head. And it's sort of like, I would have liked to heard that from, Larry Fessenden or Barbara Crampton or, Charles Band or whoever, right? Like, I would have liked to hear that thought from them, not from you, because ultimately what you're doing now is this is it's still a documentary, but the documentary is being driven by a very specific narrative thread that you want to make, as opposed to I have this thought and what do these people think about this? Oh, they're going down the same narrative thread I was already thinking. That's great. I can use that. Or, oh no, they went down a completely different narrative thread and they all said making movies is super easy and whatever, right? So that was the thing that when you talk about directing, I got a little like, and ultimately I think it was just because he didn't have the footage, right? He didn't have the people saying the things that he really wanted them to say. So he just said them to kind of make the narrative of the movie work for what he was trying to do. But ultimately, I will disagree slightly about the, it being a commercial or a trailer for Life Changer, because the thing that's so interesting about that movie is that movie's 3 years old from the festival circuit. I never heard of it once when it came around. And ultimately, the thing I like about it is again, I think you're right, Aries. I think he started making this as if like, okay, I'm on a track to make that Kane movie, that Mark Kane movie. And this is going to be like a great documentary of like how I made this movie. And then that doesn't happen. And the movie does start to get jumbled because all of a sudden it's like the story takes a left-hand turn because now he's making a short film about Christmas that he's sending out as a Christmas card. And then he's making some other movie that he wrote while he was trying to pitch the other film because no one wanted his other film. And I thought, okay, ultimately it's jumbled because the movie doesn't go where he kind of, even if he's just filming for kicks, it doesn't go where he wants it to go. But at the same time, to me, it becomes more interesting because it goes actually where it needs to go. It's like he didn't have control over that. That Mark of Cain was not going to get made. He had control of, oh shit, now I have to make something, or I don't know. So I found that interesting. I don't know. I found that interesting.
But you know what? If he didn't try to steer where this original idea was trying to go, I would have been more engaged. The fact that he was trying to control it and direct it to where he needed to go, because you could actually feel where it was, going off the kilter, and he was trying to, guide it back to where he needed it to be. Where, because he was the center of it and trying to direct it at the same time, I think that is where this movie lacks. He either needed to be the center of attention or he needed to direct it.
Yeah, I will agree with that. I think that it's almost like a conflict of interest in a sense, because he's telling his own story. Like, I think it is interesting to watch. I think that it is a really interesting decision, but I think it's almost like a conflict of interest. And I know a lot of times this, some people can do it well, but I know a lot of times directors will say you need to have an editor to edit your footage, because if you're editing your own footage, you could be self-indulgent. You could make the wrong cuts.
Yeah,
and they actually talk about that in the movie.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I mean, if a good director will listen to every idea that's thrown to him, from actors, actresses, to the food catering guy, to whoever else is on the set, or just people he runs into on the street.
Even Raven Shadow?
Goes to get a coffee. Even Raven Shadow, yeah. Even Raven Shadow, believe it or not.
When Raven Shadow wants to wear his thermals.
Yep.
You gotta listen to that.
But a good director will listen to the idea. Doesn't have to accept them.
Well,
but a good director will listen to them.
I want to take umbrage with that because I think that it depends on the personality. Not some directors know exactly what they want. And if that's the way that they do it and that's what's successful for them, then that's the way that they do it. So I think I understand what you're saying, that you should be open to taking criticism or feedback from others. But I think there's just some people who know their vision so well and that others might not be able to see it. Like, for instance, this is completely, I guess actually it's not completely out of left field, because it was it was a hugely successful independent film, in a sense. A filmmaker was Star Wars. George Lucas, everyone was like, you got to do this, you got to do this. And he wanted to tell his story. And he was very, go ahead, Jay. Yes.
Well, except what's the ultimate anecdotal story about why Star Wars was successful?
The editing.
Because Marshall Lucas took that movie that was edited and pieced together in a way that nobody could understand. And it happened to his wife at the time, and she took that movie and crafted it into something that made some fucking sense to an audience. Right? And again, I think you're right. Again, I think MZ, I think you're both right. The idea is ultimately you can have all the vision in the world and know exactly what you want, but at least being willing to allow an actor to say, here's my thought on this. And I think ultimately just saying, like, you will listen to that. It doesn't mean you're going to do it. It doesn't mean you're going to try it. It doesn't mean, but there is something even to, like, especially in independent filmmaking, where it's like, you have to have everything kind of nailed down, because you don't have time to go, oh, well, let's just try this, or let's just, it's like you've planned out, these are the shots we're doing this day, and we got to get this done because we don't have this location another day. And if we don't get all this stuff in the can, and then when an actor comes and says, well, I think I should be in a blue shirt instead of a red shirt, and you're like, well, we don't have an hour to go buy you a blue shirt. Right. You can, but if you listen to them and say, okay, well, I've heard why, you think you need a blue shirt, but we're going to go with the red shirt. I mean, that person's still not going to like it, but I think there's an element of, what is talked about quite a bit in the movie, and what MZ is talking about, which is, you have to let other people. And that's, again, and ultimately a good director will let their other production people make a lot of decisions for them, because that's why they hire that person, right? They say, if you're the effects person, I know what I want specifically, but ultimately the effects person is going to tell me, you only gave me this much money and this much time, so this is what I'm going to be able to give you. And you have to kind of own that. The thing I was going to say about all that stuff too is I was going to bring up the David Arquette documentary, the wrestling doc, because that's a good example of, like, he produced that, his wife produced that, but he didn't direct it. He was like letting somebody else film him as he went through a journey. And there is something about, again, that sort of outside person, even though ultimately I'm sure in the edit they got to control to some degree what you ultimately got to see, right? Which, again, he seemed fine with letting you see everything, kind of warts and all, in that documentary. But it was probably because it was an outside person saying, well, this is what happened. This is what you said in that moment, and this is why I think this moment is important, as opposed to the director kind of like deciding, who's also the star of the movie, saying, do I think this is important? Do I think this is important for the documentary? Versus a director saying, hey, we're making this movie about you making a movie. Here's what we think is actually good for the movie. And then again, a conversation can be had, because ultimately subjects of documentaries usually have a lot of rights of refusal of what can be shown. But usually a director can tell them, this is what happened. You hired us to make a documentary, and this is what we think is impactful and powerful as an outside observer. And who's going to be the ultimate outside observer of this documentary, but an audience who doesn't know you, who doesn't know anything about your life, who doesn't know anything about this movie. I'm going to take them on a journey, as opposed to you taking them through your own journey.
Right. Yeah.
And again, I don't ultimately think it's a bad thing. Like, I don't think it's, because I do think if you're interested in movies, if you're interested in filmmaking, there is an element of this, which is like, again, even though they're not completely in the same league, but like a Lost in La Mancha, right? Where it's like just seeing somebody trying to make something, for me, is always fascinating, because I like films and then, there's enough talking heads, there's enough, things in there where you go, okay, that was interesting. That was, and then it's an hour and a half later and you're like, okay, like, all right, I saw that, I mean, you didn't reinvent the wheel. Didn't blow my mind like Hearts of Darkness or something, of like But it was like, all right, that's what your personal journey of making a movie was like, or getting to a certain point. And, okay, all right, so.
Yeah, I think the things that really stood out to me was it was interesting to get a sort of inside glimpse of what these film markets and festivals are like. That's one thing I've heard of film markets. I've heard of Fantasia. I've heard of all these, not Fantasia. I'm sorry, Frontiers. But I don't know what that's like. So I thought it was interesting to see that sort of inside look at what these film markets are and what happens there. It's really like speed dating, right? I mean, I think they even use that analogy in there. You get 10, 15 minutes, you go talk to like a production company, try to sell them on your idea, and then you move on to the next. So I thought that was interesting. And also, one thing I will give Justin McConnell credit for is his passion, whether it's misguided or not. This dude works his ass off, and he wants to make fucking movies. That's what he wants to do, and that's all he knows, for better or worse. We don't ever get to see if he's good at anything else. I mean, I don't know. He doesn't. It's just not shown. But I think that passion is kind of infectious, even if it is a little misguided at times, or if maybe he doesn't have sort of the right attitude entering things. But I think. And then seeing him get his film made, and getting the budget that he's wanted, was like a happy ending, right? It was kind of like you were kind of in the weeds with him, and then you're like, all right, cool, dude, this is awesome, good for you, man, And so I think it gives you that sort of in a sense that happy ending, even if it did feel a little slightly self-indulgent at times. And I think you guys are right. Being the director and the subject of your own documentary is a little weird, because you can absolutely control the narrative as opposed to letting it unfold. I know we've had Steven Scarlatta on, our buddy, to talk about Jodorowsky's Dune, and he said during the filming of that, the narrative changed from what he initially intended. It was going in, gonna do one thing, and then the narrative changes and you go with it, and then it almost forms a new narrative in the editing as well, But I feel like if you're the subject of your own documentary, you're sort of angling it in a certain way. So
yeah. Well, exactly, because that's how I felt when I was watching this. I just felt like it was just one big pity party, well, I'm trying to get this movie made, but I can't get the funding. I'm trying to get this movie made. I'm heading out to film festivals, but I can't get any money. Oh, there's somebody that's interested and might get the money. Oh, now they just pulled out. And this, it just became one bad luck deal after another. And the reality is that is most likely true. I mean, I'm not a filmmaker. I don't know anything really about that. But I was kind of on the fence between, this is what it's really like, but at the same time, I felt like this was it's really one big pity show for this guy, and so I'm really on the fence about what this is. But because as you said, Wolfie, because he's the director, he's the editor, he could steer that narrative toward himself to either make himself look like he knows what he's doing, which he claims he does, but also have people have pity on him because he's just not getting the breaks that he feels that he's deserving of. So I'm really on the fence about this documentary.
Well, I would just say, I mean, he clearly does know, and to me, there is an element there where you don't get in those rooms if you don't know. So there is an element of that. I think, that's the one thing that I don't think is disputable. I mean, the questions become, which is what you're relating to, MZ, is well, why is it ultimately that certain distributors or certain companies aren't willing to go full in on investing in his movies and so forth and so on. And some of it might be personality driven, right? Which we don't ever really see, but could be around the edges there, right? Where it's, again, if you I don't know if pity is the right word, but if you feel like you've worked and done the work and I don't want to say owed it, but there is an element of that where if people start telling you no and you're like, because it does come up a couple of times in the movie where he sort of implies without naming names, where he's like, I see other people who make movies worse than mine getting these breaks and your brain is like, is there a little bit of sort of, now again, I think you have to have a certain ego in any field to rise to that next level, right? You have to have, like, I know what the fuck I'm talking about. You also have to be able to back it up. And I think he does have the goods to an extent to back it up, but there is an intangible to all of this, which gets into stuff we talked about way early in this conversation, which relates to timing. And again, like, I think we talked about the timing of, the Smiths and the Tarantinos. There was a timing element to those movies at that time that hit something in the zeitgeist. And the same thing gets talked about in this a little bit of a way where, a lot of these distributors that he's approaching, Raven Banner, and, they're not looking for, in some ways, the type of movie that he wants to make. They're looking for Life Changer. They're looking for a certain budgeted type film that can be shot in a certain number of days, that can be easily narratively cohesive in a way, really not reinventing the genre or anything. They're just like, we want content to throw on Amazon Prime. We want content to throw on Shudder. We want content to throw into Redbox, right? And I think there's an element of that to all of this, but ultimately I do think he has the chops because, again, you brought up Frontiers, which is at Fantasia, or one of them is. You don't get into that if you don't have the artistic goods to sort of sell a narrative and a story and a script, and you might get in the room, but you're not in the competition of people who are actually getting up and presenting in those markets. I mean, they only pick 10. Usually those markets are like 10 movies to each market. The Cannes one is very, very, like cutthroat and tough. I think Frontiers has 2 now because, again, there's so many genre filmmakers who have great ideas, but, they didn't have the chance to do it. So, I'm with all of you in the same sense where I'm sort of like, I'm really, not torn, but like there is an element of like I sort of do a seesaw with this movie, where it's like, and then when you ask that question, did I enjoy it? And it's like, well, I don't know, did I? I think I did, but at the same time, I'm like, I don't know though, did I? Well, I want to say one other thing real quick too. It's very hard to pity somebody or feel sorry for somebody when they're in the south of France, Toronto, Montreal, Helsinki, Korea, Argentina, in Amsterdam on a gondola smoking weed. Like your brain, because that's that's shit I think about. That the shit I think about is like, how are you going to all these places?
Yeah,
like,
I mean, he's got to achieve something
if you can go to all these places. Like to me. If you're going to all those places, you made it, man. You made it.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, he's talking about how he's made better movies than these other movies. That boils down to a matter of opinion.
Sure.
Any movie. You one person likes it, one person hates it. So that boils down to that. But also, there's a difference between a bad movie and a good bad movie. I mean, MZ is the master of the love and the bad movies. He'll tell you all day long that he'll watch a bad movie over and over again. You know what? So a bad movie making
porn.
Yeah. A bad movie making it into a film festival is more believable than an okay movie making it into a film festival, because people are more willing to rewatch a bad movie than an okay movie.
I mean, think about it. I mean, I'll speak for myself, and gathering from what Professor J here says, he's basically on the same boat with me. far as how we feel about this documentary. But I mean, how good can his films be? Now, I've never seen them. None of us have ever seen them, so we don't know. But just going by what we've seen so far, how good can his films be if the documentary that he films about himself and is steered towards himself, and we're on the fence about that as to whether or not it's a well-made documentary. I mean, we don't even know.
Well, the documentary is completely different than his films. I mean, a documentary and a film are two different things.
That's what I think too. I think that when you say what kind of movie could he make, I bet if you gave him $150 million, he'd make a great movie.
Yeah,
I think he'd make. It might not be like, I don't know. What's a great big tentpole blockbuster movie that you all like? What's a
Endgame or an Avengers movie?
Yeah, okay. It might not be Endgame level good, but it might be like Battleship good. You know what I'm saying? I've never seen that movie, but I'm just saying, like, I'm sure that movie is a competently made movie. It's just probably like it's probably just story wise it's weak, and it probably the acting might be so or whatever. But at the end of the day, like it's like it's got a lot of good stuff happening in it. It's just so I think that's the thing that's so interesting about this, and that's why like Wingard to me is a perfect example, because if you think of like Kong versus Godzilla or Godzilla versus Kong, like a completely different type of directing to direct that than to direct, You're Next, which is a bunch of actors in a house and gore effects and action stunt effects that are practical and all that kind of stuff on a lean budget and getting it all done and getting it all sort of packaged up and edited really nicely. People go, oh, I had fun with that small little movie. And once you prove you can do that, to me, then it's just a management thing, right? Now, again, does he have the management skills to manage all of those departments? Who knows? But again, I think this is where what the movie does right as a documentary is it really does kind of double down on the fact of, okay, if you want to be a filmmaker, that could happen, but don't think that's ever going to happen. Unless there's a very clear sort of path to getting there, right? Like there's some kind, and there isn't. I guess the path is try to make some good small movies, try to get them in festivals, try to get programmers at the bigger festivals to be talking about your films, and then hopefully maybe if you're in TIFF or you're in Sundance or you're in these big genre festivals, maybe a studio will go, well, we need somebody to reinvent this franchise. He seems like a nice guy. She seems like a nice woman. Let's. And again, ultimately what these things do all the time, right, is they hire these people, and if they don't like them, they just fire them during the middle, right? Lord and Miller, right? It's like, I can't remember, there was somebody, a Marvel person, I feel like that got fired at one point, but Disney seems to do this.
Edgar Wright.
Yeah. Again, and he had made some bigger movies before that, but yeah, he was still making smaller budgeted films to a degree in the UK before he got Ant-Man, and then Ant-Man didn't happen, and he went back to making small, but I think that's the track. And then some people hit James Gunn. Okay. Yep. He does it right. Makes a thing. Now they're in. Waititi, now you're in. Jon Favreau, now you're in, right?
Thing too, like who would have thought the fucking dude that did Swingers and Made, fucking not only did he take control over the Marvel, he started with Iron Man, but then took control. He let off the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and could be argued that he's one of the cats that saved Star Wars from a certain fan point of view. And this was fucking
from a
the
certain
dude
point of view.
Right, this is the dude. This is Gutter from PCU. Can you blow me where the Pampers is? And the fucking dude who couldn't fucking get a date.
The dude, wasn't he in Rudy too?
Yeah.
Yeah,
he was.
And to be fair, though, why isn't Vince Vaughn in a Marvel Cinematic Picture or Star Wars?
He had some problems for a little while.
What, with alcohol?
That's another topic for another. We talked about it a little bit when we did Brawl and Subluck 99, but
well, fair enough. But I think in any documentary, you're going to come at something from a certain perspective, right? If Michael Moore is doing Bowling for Columbine, he has an agenda, right? If he's doing the car one with Michigan, Where's Dave or whatever the fuck that was years ago, you come at it from a certain perspective. But I do think that's the best documentaries is always the director says, but I didn't know where this was going. Oh, John,
yeah.
something?
Well, I was just gonna say, and one thing that I will give Justin McConnell credit for is when you make a documentary, it better be something that you feel passionate about, because, that's one thing especially when talking with Steven Scarlatta about Jodorowsky's Dune, like that dude, like dug up so much information. He'd been wanting to make that movie for years, 20 years or something ridiculous, but in this case, Justin McConnell, as the subject, is incredibly passionate about what he's documenting, So I think that's one of the things that does have that is in favor of this, despite maybe some of the missteps that I feel were made in making it. The passion shines through, and I feel like it gave a glimpse of a world that you maybe don't have as deep of an understanding as you thought you did, at least for me. So I thought that was interesting. So when you watch a documentary, what are the boxes you want to check? Like, you kind of want to, maybe not necessarily a happy ending, but a cohesive narrative that ends, that has like a fitting ending. You want something that the person's passionate about, or something that's interesting to you. And I think it checks a lot of those boxes. I think that there are some missteps, especially as we talked about being the director and the subject. And I feel like I did want to see some more talking heads of some of the other, celebrities and filmmakers that he had lined up for this.
Yeah. I mean, again, that's a big thing to me, where it's like, I think you want somebody else. Again, if a documentary filmmaker has a point of view at all, which again, I know we like to think they don't, but ultimately when they put it together, there's a point of view there. They chose what to film. They chose what to put in and not put in. You at least want somebody else saying your point of view, right? It's not you saying this is that. Then that becomes not. Again, I would say it's not a documentary; it's a lecture, right? It's a. This is how it is, and I'm going to tell you how it is, and that the movie I thought about when I was watching this the second time was American Movie. I don't know if you've seen that movie, but
oh yeah.
But that's where you think about like somebody making a movie where somebody else is sort of filming them making the movie or trying to get the movie made. Again, I know this is a little bit different of a film than that, because this is more about the industry and about how to get your work seen.
Yeah.
Right. And how to get a studio or a distributor to get it. Whereas American Movie is more just about a dream project and trying to get it made. But there's a central element to, again, sort of having the person with the camera and the person sort of making the creative choices outside of that. Even though they're working with those people, they're still outside. They're still a little bit removed. And as soon as, again, Michael Moore, as soon as you put Michael Moore in, it starts to change a little bit. Morgan Spurlock, right? As soon as you put Morgan Spurlock in, it changes slightly, where it's like, well, what is this really? Now we're looking at it in a very different way. And then ultimately what happens time and time again, like with the Talking Heads thing is you're just telling us what you want to tell us. And I don't know if that's what I bought into here. What I wanted to buy into was a kind of a look at how all of this works from a lot of different people who've gone at a lot of different, Del Toro way up here, Mike Mendez way down here, whatever, programmers, actors, all these different producers, right? I mean, how often you see documentaries? And so I think all of that is great. And your brain is like, oh, I just wish Barbara Crampton said that instead of you, right? Like,
yeah.
just, because it would have more weight to me, and it would feel like, oh, she said this because this is what it is, because she's been in 100 movies or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we're winding things down mostly because we're going to run out of time soon. But I want to head to the verdict. Does anyone have anything else about the documentary that hasn't been brought up that is worth a discussion, or do you guys just want to head to the verdict?
Verdict.
All right. Let's listen to Raven Shadow then. Raven Shadow will speak for all of us.
Yes, yeah, Bambaleo.
Trick or treat, baby.
I wonder if people would say you're a trick or a treat.
Trick or treat, motherfucker.
All right, it is verdict time. I'm going to let you know whether Clapboard Jungle was a trick or a treat, and any final thoughts we may have. Let's start with our guest, Professor J.
Oh, I go first. Oh boy. This is a tough one for me. This is I will say let me say this first, because it's one thing I didn't say, which is one of the other things I liked about this movie, which is a little egotistical, is, you know, it was very neat to see people in places that either I have an affinity with, meaning like I like their work, and they're not people who are not like, you know, I like Quentin Tarantino's work, but I have no connection to Quentin Tarantino. I have no connection to Paul Thomas Anderson. But it was very interesting to kind of see this documentary and see people, some that I know, and some that I know tangentially or have had conversations with in the past, and to hear their thoughts on this stuff. I liked that element of it. You know, it's like when you see your hometown in a movie or something, right? You know, you go, oh, look, there's the store I buy my candy at.
Right.
I thought that was neat because what it did for me was it really brought down this idea of that the independent film community, I mean, this has happened many times when we've talked, is very small. It's like, we all know these people in some way, shape, or form. You talk about Steven, you talk about Izzy, you talk about, you know, I mean, it's weird how like we know these people, even though. So I thought that was a good piece to this movie of like how small and how much affection there is in a certain industry of people who like independent film, who like independent genre film. I thought that was really important. Ultimately, I think I'm gonna say Trick. Trick. Just because I think it's a little too insider baseball, and it's neat to see that stuff, and it's neat to kind of, but ultimately, I don't think it's something that, unless you want to be a filmmaker or you're just really interested in genre filmmaking, it doesn't have enough that really feels compelling. Again, I'm right on that fence, but I think I would lean towards Trick.
All right, let's go to Monster Zero.
Until we get a better, because this could be a very good companion piece to American Movie, especially if Mark Borchardt was the featured director in this documentary. The talking heads, I mean, they were all interesting, and some were on just far too brief, way too brief. I mean, we talk about Izzy Lee. I mean, she was on twice for a total of about 9 seconds. And Jen Wexler, she was on for a little bit more, which was always good to hear. And Mick Garris had the Silver Lux flowing like crazy, man. I had to stick that in there somewhere. And it's always good to hear him. Lloyd Kaufman and very little bit of George Romero too. George Romero, for Christ's sake. I mean, he should have gotten more time as well. Ultimately, I mean, it isn't about whether or not this guy made it in film or not. As Professor J says, if he's traveling to all these places, to all these film festivals, then he's made it. So ultimately, is this a good documentary? No.
Right.
It's not. I found it. I used the term pity piece, but it was the only term that I could think of, and I'm sticking to that. I just never really found the director to be all that engaging. He was more interested in, as being the director of the film, of the documentary, and the editor. It just he kind of steered it towards, there was a narrative there that was geared more towards him than the central focus, which was just trying to get the film out and being sold. But there was just nothing engaging about it. And there were times where I was really just starting to dislike the guy. And I don't want to feel that way. I'm a people person. I like people. So, that being said, I'm going to say that this is a trick.
All right, Aries.
All right. Yeah, I don't think it's any secret at this point. I didn't care for this. I thought it was, a little too much and not enough. The talking heads, there was a little too many of them, but also not enough of them. If that makes any sense, because they'd be on there, but they only be on for a couple of seconds, and then you go back to the director where he'd talk for 5 more minutes before a talking head would pop up for 5 more seconds. For the type of movie this was, I don't think they should have had the bigger name independent filmmakers. Even though they are independent, they are well known. I don't think Romero should have been in this. I don't think Del Toro should have been in this. I think they should have been the lesser known, and would have had more of an impact, and let them speak more about what it is to make an independent movie. Because through 80% of this movie, I thought it was a why you shouldn't make a movie documentary. It really just seemed like it was just like a stay away from the industry type of thing. It was not appealing at all to try to break into the industry. I thought they were, although it is difficult, I thought they were overselling that. And people should be encouraged to try to make movies. Whether they succeed or not, people should try. If that is your passion, make a movie. If one person watches it, that is a success. And I don't think this documentary got that across up until the end, and it was more of a success because it got into a festival, not because the film was made. And there was a lot of other problems with this. A lot of them stemming because it was the director it was about him. He stated right at the beginning, there are 3 things you shouldn't do with a documentary. He broke all those rules right from the beginning. He made it known he was going to do that. That is a very bold and brave statement, but that failed for him because it didn't work, and he proved why those rules are in place. So ultimately, this is a trick. I wouldn't even bother.
Raven Shadow.
So listen, I give this dude credit, man. He made some short films. He made a documentary. He's got a passport, apparently. You know what I mean? And he's on to
wow. You have low standards.
Yeah. What gave it away? 20 years fucking knowing each other.
He's got one up on you. He's got a passport, so.
But no, I mean, big ups. You get to travel. That's nice. But I gotta say, like, I found the talking heads portion of this documentary way more interesting than the overall narrative. And I did not find this guy. I didn't root for him. I don't wish the dude ill, but like he reminded me of some positive but more negative aspects of some even people that we know. I thought it was interesting we didn't talk about the conversation he had with his parents about what's my biggest flaw. And like, well, you can't take criticism. And I kind of wish they would have explored that a little bit more with it. Even the time to talk about the director concept about listening to people, I think that can also be said for leadership as well. But still, you can't have the Dave Clock 5. You could have one supreme commander. I don't think this dude was somebody that was inspiring. I liked his partner, the woman that he worked with, more than him. I almost wish this movie was Michael Biehn interacting with these various directors. Being Michael Biehn, him walking around fucking, talking to people. And overall, I didn't really care if it's success. Maybe if the movie ended with, and then he made Pulp Fiction. Okay, great. But I'm surprised that you didn't hear about this, Jay, in any of your circles, which is pretty in-depth.
Yeah, and I would just add to that, too, that somebody brought it up earlier where these genre festivals, I mean, there are a lot of movies, like Fantasia, holy moly. I mean, there are a ton of genre. No, I'm just saying there are so many movies that play at Fantasia and they're all levels of independent genre stuff. 90% of them you'll never hear from again. I mean, now I'm not saying. So but I was surprised. I was surprised when the first time I watched this. I'm like, how have I not ever heard of this movie? Like, it hasn't come across any sort of. And I think it's because it plays these festivals, but it is just like, well, we let a lot of movies in and got in because he's connected. He knows people. He's got skills.
And I mean, much respect to his hustle. I just can't root for him. And I think just like I would think any documentary director would at least have their own vision of the narrative. I think watching a documentary, you kind of go into it with an opinion too, right? Like if I'm watching the Michael Moore documentary, I'm on the same page with that dude for the most part. You know what I mean? Like you still have an audience, and I just couldn't root for this director. And overall, I didn't really care if he succeeded or not. I hope he does well. But the best compliment I can give a documentary is I wish it had another hour. 35 minutes more. I wish he kept going. I felt Jodorowsky's Dune, that could have been fucking 2 more fucking hours. Survival of the Film Freaks by our buddy Bill and Kyle. I could have watched that, another half an hour more of that. They could have interviewed.
Only 30 more minutes of that.
That's it, bro.
Slow it down, Bill. But no. But that's once again, just saying some documentaries. I'm just throwing that out there, but I couldn't. If the director and the star and the focus is the same person, I couldn't get behind it. So I much enjoyed the Talking Heads more. But overall, I would say this is still a trick for me, man.
All right. And so for me, I kind of went back and forth a little bit on this. Ultimately, I'm going to give it a tepid treat. And despite having some issues with the narrative and like I mentioned earlier about the director also being the subject, I think... And you guys said a lot of things of what I was thinking as well. Like, Justin seems like a cool guy. Like, he seems fine, but like, it was difficult to root for him. I didn't necessarily I don't know. Like, I don't know if it was his reactions or whatever, but like, it wasn't like I was hanging on every single word when he got a call and he was like, well, heard from the studio. They're dropping us again or whatever. Like I wasn't on this emotional roller coaster with him. I was just like, oh, well, that sucks, dude. I feel like that emotion could have been captured better, the lows and the highs. And when he finally did get the deal, it was like, oh, I got it. We signed it. Like, I feel like there could have been more to really heighten that emotion. Like when you're watching a documentary, you're watching a glimpse of real people doing real things, Raven Shadow. Like, like you're watching someone do like perform their craft or something that they're passionate about or whatever. Like what was that what was that documentary about the climber? Free Fall, was it, or something?
Free Solo.
Free
Fall would have been a very different movie.
Yeah, exactly. But that one, like
Free Fall, I probably would have watched.
Yeah.
That movie wouldn't have got released.
Fair enough.
He tried to climb El Capitan and he fell to his death.
Watch in gruesome detail as he falls.
More of a short film.
No, but but that one, like, I'm not a rock climber. I'm not going to climb rocks. I'm not going to do any of that. But I found that incredibly compelling, the way it was presented, and the emotion of, like, you wanted him to succeed. So whereas film is something that I'm invested in. We talk about him every week. We've been in some. Some of us even tried to make some. So it's something that I feel strongly about. But I wasn't along for the ride with him. And I think that is a failing of ultimately has to fall on the director, right? So, I think that the emotion wasn't captured incredibly well, but I will give it a tepid treat for giving me a glimpse of a world, like getting some insight and seeing some cool talking heads. Like, ultimately, I'm not mad that I saw this movie. I think it is kind of a cool little glimpse, and I am actually kind of interested in checking out Life Changer, to see what that's all about. So, and I think that his short, the Christmas short that he made, I thought it looked great. Like, in terms of, like, the way it looked, I thought it looked pretty cool. And seeing some of the choreography and stuff that they were doing, that looked cool. And that was, like, probably the biggest glimpse that we got of one of his things. And I think that looks really interesting. So I'd like to see that. But yeah, ultimately it did the job, but I feel like there was a lot left on the table, and I think that they could have really brought us along on the emotional highs and lows with him a little bit better. So ultimately a tepid treat for me. So, but I think the thing is, it brought about some really interesting conversation. Like, we talked for pretty much the length of the movie is how long we talked about it. So, I think that ultimately it did have some good discussion. And this is one, if anyone is into independent filmmaking, I would still recommend checking it out, even though, we got 4 tricks and a tepid treat. It's something worth seeing, and seeing the kind of trials that he goes through to get ultimately to get a film made. So, I think it's worth a watch, for some people. For others, the other guys didn't love it, so your mileage may vary. But if you have the Arrow streaming service, it's available to check out there. So, all right. So next week, I think what we're going to do, Jay, I think we're going to bring you back. You've been such a good guest. I think we're going to bring you back next week.
You sure you don't want to talk this over with the rest of the group privately?
We don't care what Raven Shadow thinks. We want you back.
Yeah, you do. And I'm down with fucking Jay.
You down with fucking Jay? Oh, well, that's another show. Maybe get the Symbian going. And
sanctions are lifted, baby.
Let me get one more shot in 2 weeks, baby. Then we'll
All
make
right. Well, then it's 2 weeks after that. So, really
right.
forward.
And then keep me after class, brother. We'll see what happens.
All right.
All right. So we are going to do, actually, there's a connection, because the film in Clapboard Jungle, there was several interviews with Travis Stevens, and Travis Stevens is the director of our next movie, Jacob's Wife. Also, there's another connection. There's actually several connections. This is really funny. Barbara Crampton stars. So does Larry Fessenden. So we get Barbara, we get Larry, and we get Travis Stevens, all who are in Clapboard Jungle. So we are going to check out Jacob's Wife. And Travis Stevens is, if you don't remember, Raven Shadow, he directed the CM Punk movie, The Girl on the Third Floor.
Oh, no, because I was confusing him with either Fisher Stevens or Shadow Stevens.
Yeah. really difficult to tell.
We're gonna talk about tracks next week. Awesome.
Oh yeah, tracks, brother. Oh, we're now getting it on, Jay. Come on over, brother.
What, are we going to talk about Short Circuit next?
Hell yeah. Let's do that.
There's no. Oh, I guess Fisher Stevens is in that. Okay. We're talking Shadow Stevens. We're going.
No, we'll do a hackers tracks double feature. It'll be nice.
Tracks would be awesome. Shadow Stevens, Philip Barnes. What are you kidding me?
Yeah, Monster just woke up. That's good.
All right.
Yeah.
Oh, is the game over now? You paying attention?
Yeah.
TV's off. It's been off.
All right. So next week we're going to do Jacob's Wife. As I mentioned, starring Barbara Crampton and Larry Fessenden. And it also has, I actually just looking at the cast for the first time now, aside from those two, has Bonnie Aarons, who, if you guys have seen The Nun, or what was the second Conjuring movie, she plays the demon nun.
Was it Conjuring 2?
Conjuring Dose, yeah. So yeah, looking forward to checking out Jacob's Wife. I know Jay is excited about talking about it with us, and that's why we're bringing it back. It's a twofer. So we didn't get enough of Jay this week. We're going to get some more next week. So, all right. Well, what's that, Rave Shadow?
Double J.
Double shot. Yeah, double J. Double shot of double J.
J.
All right. Well, it is 11. We have 2 voice messages that came in during the course of the show. So let's get to these, and then we'll wrap things up. So let's start with our boy, Arkham Josh.
Hey, Trick or Treat Radio guys, it's Arkham Josh here. Just calling in with a real quick one. Had a chance to check out this week's film, Clapboard Jungle. So, this is kind of a tough one to give the standard review to. Because as a documentary, it doesn't really have any real specific style or lighting to really discuss or, anything like that. And there isn't really a story. Actually, the one thing I gotta say is, as somebody who has been a longtime fan of films and independent film and worked on a number of festivals and events and everything, I found this documentary to be fairly lackluster in that it didn't really give me any information or tidbits or really situation that I didn't already know about or understand. The most interesting parts of the film were kind of these talking head documentaries, and those were just too short and too few. I kind of spent the time wanting to get away from Justin's story and just kind of see more interview clips. And you know what, I'm going to say I've had some very minor interactions with Justin, and he seems like a very good guy. I think my only interactions with him have been through email. The film that they discuss in there that he directed, I think in 2011, The Collapse, we showed that at Rock and Shark at the film festival. So we were one of the film festivals that went through, and it is a solid little low budget film, and I haven't seen any of the other stuff. I'm not sure, the kind of the situation with everything else at the moment, but I would definitely check out the other films that he's working on. But I don't know, the documentary just didn't work for me. There wasn't enough drama to his situation to make it compelling, and there wasn't enough of the interview clips to make it educational or entertaining. So I'm going to have to say it's a trick, and not a recommend. Definitely not a recommend if you don't already have Arrow. I would not go and get a new streaming service to see this. I'm not even sure I would recommend the free trial just to see this. Since they got the stylist, get a free trial to see that, and then maybe check this out. Because it does have some interesting little interviews with some other filmmakers The problem is the couple of dozen other filmmakers are probably in it for 2 minutes apiece tops. So, I don't know. I guess take from that what you will, but I would say Clapboard Jungle is unfortunately a treat and not a recommend. But I would say that from my experience, Justin's, actual films, at least from the case of The Collapsed, is not bad. That's definitely, it was a film worth checking out. And, I'm kind of looking forward to looking around and checking out the other films that he's done. So, I don't know. I'm interested to hear what you guys thought of it. I'm curious if anybody else will have the same issue that I did. But other than that, I don't know. I hope all's going well for you guys, and I'll talk to you soon. All right? Bye.
All right, Josh. Thanks, man. I think he was in a wind tunnel there. But the documentary didn't work for Josh either, but he did give a recommendation to check out Justin's film work. He spoke pretty highly of The Collapsed, and I am curious to check out Life Changer. So at the very least, it introduced us to a filmmaker we weren't familiar with, or some of us weren't. So, oh my God, MZ, are you fucking alive?
Here.
Doesn't answer the question.
Yes.
All right,
if I'm answering, then yeah, I'm alive.
We'll get one more voice message, MZ. All right, and then we'll say goodbye. So, this is from First Time Mike.
What's up, Trick or Treat family? This is First Time Mike. Hope everything is well with you. I have tonight a review and a recommendation. My review tonight is I got a chance to see Willy's Wonderland, and I'll be blunt, it's a treat. I enjoyed it a lot. I have, just from the opening clips, I'm like, I had an idea what I was getting into. The cover makes it pretty much obvious, and I like how it was good, strong visuals of the movie. I love Nick Cage as the janitor with his little idiosyncrasies, and which kept on building and building, like each break kept on building and building to different things. And another thing I like is it effortlessly, through a couple information dumps and just some of the dialogue between the characters, you get a lot more sense of this has been going on for a long time. There's a history behind it. And it was done in a quick way where a lot of movies would have just like forced some background on it. The way that Willy Wonderland did it was quick shot, fun, entertaining, because you know why you're here. You're here to watch Nick Cage beat the crap out of some rip-offs of the Freddy movies, Five Nights at Freddy animatronic movies, and just kick the living shit out of them. That's what you get in this movie. Again, it's a treat. It's a fun movie. It's 90 minutes. The theme song will get stuck in your head, and it was great. Also, gives me another reason to go, fuck you, Banana Splits movie. Fuck you.
Yes.
You could have been so much better. But, okay, that's done. Now, my recommendation is, if you have Shudder, they have the uncut version of Alex de Iglesias' Perdita Durango, which it was released when I first saw it, it was in the late 90s, released as Dance with the Devil. Rosie Perez, early Javier Bardem, and pre-Sopranos James Gandolfini, the great Santiago Segura, who's in a ton of Alex de Iglesias' movie. A fun face I always like seeing, B-movie actor Don Stroud, and motherfucking Screaming Jay Hawkins as a sidekick, which is just awesome. It's a movie of anarchy, crime, freedom. It's a lot of the uncut version. There's a lot more sex and violence in the version I saw, and it can be a disturbing movie, but it's one that kind of makes you think through all the action. Great movie. Take the time to watch Perdita Durango. It's a great freaking movie. Well, I gotta go. This is First Time Mike wishing everybody all the best from Milwaukee, the good land. Good night. Bye.
All right, First Time Mike, thanks, man. And we appreciate you checking in and letting us know your thoughts on Willy's Wonderland and everything else. So we appreciate it. All right. Before MZ has a fucking slips into a coma here, we should say goodbye. So, Jay, it's not going to be goodbye for long. We will see you next week. But it was awesome having you on again, my friend.
Yeah, it was great being here. I have one question. I don't know if that's okay. I just looked it up because you mentioned Perdita Durango. That's a sequel to Wild at Heart.
Really?
The fact they didn't mention that, it's a loose sequel to David Lynch's Wild at Heart.
Wait, is it the same characters?
Yeah, it's the same, but it's a different actors.
I don't know how to even spell that, but can either Jay or First Time Mike send me a text?
Dance with the Devil.
All right.
I believe it's on Shudder, Raven Shadow.
Yeah.
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 And
Just look for the words that say Perdita Durango, and you'll be all set.
Yeah. But I looked it up because I was just shocked he didn't. Yeah, Mexican sequel to Wild at Heart. Yep. Anyway, but I'll talk to you next week. Maybe we'll talk about that too.
Yeah, check that out, Raven Shadow.
Yeah.
Get a little bit of extra credit.
Well, no, because man, he's a big Wild at Heart fan. Maybe we'll fucking check that out. Is it called Dance the Devil or Perdita? I'm not sure. I know this.
Raven Shadow.
Perdita.
Perdita Durango.
Oh, just text it to him for fuck's sake.
That's my per diem.
It's been great talking to you all. I'll talk to you all next week.
All right.
All
right, so we will have Jay on next week. Let's go around and say goodbye, starting with Comatose MZ.
Hey, Professor J, good seeing you again, man.
Always,
See you next week. Arrivederci, douchebags.
All right, Aries.
Goodbye.
Raven Shadow.
Yo, First Time Mike. Private message me for real, brother. Okay. But until then, Jay, I love you, man. Can't wait to hang out next week. It'll be nice. I'll stay at the class, see what happens. But until then, live fast, love hard, survive with your mask on.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in to, I don't know, what episode is this? 456? Yeah, 456. We appreciate it. Everyone who tuned in live, everyone who left us a voice message, and then everyone who will listen to the podcast. You guys are the best. But we especially love our Patreon supporters even more. And also we love Professor J, and we love when class is in session so much that Jay will be joining us again next week. So can't wait to talk about Jacob's wife with Professor J. So you guys check it out. And if you have any thoughts, feel free to send them our way. podcast@trickortreatradio.com. Looking forward to that. So that's going to do it. We will see you guys next week. And Professor J, I'll see you next week.
Yeah.
See you.
I'll be here. Bye.